Li Bing lay on the ground. A gruesome gash split open his head, blood streaming out. He gasped heavily. His breaths were shallow. Each inhale far stronger than each exhale. Death was creeping close. No one else to blame but his own lingering kindness. In this resource-starved end times, he had scrimped and saved to stockpile supplies. Yet those provisions drew a pack of ungrateful neighbors who seized everything he owned. They beat him brutally. As his life slipped away, he heard Lin Shui, the woman he admired, shout loudly, "Stop fighting over them. All of this is thanks to me." Li Bing let out a bitter laugh and slipped into unconsciousness. As he teetered on the brink of death, regret gnawed at him. He had spent so long chasing after that woman, only to be betrayed by her in the end. He cursed himself for opening the door and letting wolves into his home, sealing his fate. Despair crashed over him, and as his consciousness faded away, Li Bing's first life came to an end. Ding! A shrill alarm blared. Li Bing jolted awake and sat upright in bed. Everything around him felt achingly familiar. A soft, comfortable bed and the noisy, well-loved Doraemon alarm clock beside him. This alarm clock had been a gift from Lin Shui, the woman he admired. He glanced toward the wall, where hung the portrait he had painted of her. None of this felt real. Could it be, I've been reborn? Li Bing instinctively reached down and pinched his thigh hard. Hiss! I really have come back. A surge of wild joy swept over him, and he leapt out of bed, only to fall silent a moment later. The horrific scene of his death remained vivid in his mind. He could still picture the hateful faces of those people. In the end times, humanity lost all reason. People would fight viciously just for a single biscuit. Recalling the hellish month he had endured back then, Li Bing shuddered. But he was blessed with a second chance. Li Bing stood and gazed toward the rising sun. Its brilliant, gentle light washed over him, forcing him to squint. So this is sunlight. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and let the warmth wrap around him. He stretched his arms out like a child starved for warmth, drinking in the sunlight. It still felt like a dream. The sun, it's wonderful to have you. A wild impulse came over him to strip bare and bathe fully in the sunshine, yet he forced it down. If the neighbor in the building opposite spotted him and screamed about a pervert, he would be reported and get into serious trouble. Li Bing muttered to himself. If anyone overheard him now, they would think he had lost his mind, growing ecstatic merely over seeing sunlight. He stretched and lit a cigarette, slowly sorting through his memories of the past apocalypse. In his previous life, scientists in the United States claimed to have developed a quantum entanglement technology utilizing dark matter energy fields. A breakthrough meant to harness dark matter and benefit humanity. But the experiment spiraled out of control. The sun suddenly went dark, plunging the whole world into endless night. Li Bing had been a postgraduate student in physics at Donluo University, researching dark matter energy technology himself. He knew multiple nations were conducting similar experiments, yet something had never added up. How could a dark matter spatial folding experiment extinguish an entire star? What exactly triggered the catastrophic failure? Nothing made sense. Could this tie into my supervisor's theory? Li Bing's face paled. He ran a hand through his thick hair, his head throbbing sharply. He shook it hard, pushing those questions aside for the time being. He had lived for 30 days beneath the lightless sky. No wonder seeing sunlight again stirred such overwhelming emotion. Back in the end times, he had survived that first month only thanks to the compressed biscuits stored in his apartment. In the end, he was killed by his neighbors for those supplies. He would never forget every ugly, greedy face among them. Now that he knew the apocalypse was coming, he would not repeat his old mistakes. Once he confirmed his rebirth, Li Bing hurried to the fridge and pulled out instant noodles, beef jerky, and leftover rice, devouring them hungrily. He washed everything down with cold beer. The icy liquid sliding down his throat felt like a feast. In the dark days of the apocalypse, compressed biscuits had been his only sustenance. These ordinary leftovers felt like a luxury banquet to him. After finishing his meal, he checked the time. 6 o'clock in the evening, May 1st, 2099. Summer, and the start of the 5-day Labor Day holiday. Everyone was enjoying their leisure break, unaware that the sun would vanish in exactly 1 month. No one could fathom that mere 24 hours after the sun went out, surface temperatures would plummet to -10 degrees Celsius. 3 days later, the summer chill would turn brutal, dropping to -30 degrees Celsius. There would be no wind, no disturbance. The air would turn dry and frigid, as if the whole world had fallen into an eternal frozen winter. Without solar radiation to provide heat, the planet lost its primary source of warmth. Earth would sink into stagnation and silence. Countless plants and animals would perish. Temperatures fell to -30 degrees in just 3 days. A week later, surface temperatures plunged further to -60 or 70 degrees Celsius. The sky stayed pitch black, devoid of any light. Day and night blurred together into endless darkness. Li Bing recalled that the government had released public announcements 1 week after the disaster struck, yet the information remained vague. As an ordinary person, he had paid little attention back then. Right then, a massive countdown appeared before his eyes. 29 days, 23 hours, 10 minutes, 2 seconds. 29 days, 23 hours, 10 minutes, 1 second. 29 days, 23 hours, 10 minutes, 0 seconds. Less than a month left. There is still time. The countdown made Li Bing's heart race with tension. He pulled out his bank card. It held more than 100,000 yuan, savings he had earned through part-time work during his studies. But it was far from enough. In the apocalypse, supplies were everything. Money would become worthless, less useful even than scrap paper. He was 24 or 25 years old, a physics graduate student working on dark matter research alongside his supervisor. Could his rebirth be linked to physical changes brought on by exposure to dark matter? Li Bing clenched his fists and checked his body thoroughly. There were no unusual signs. As he organized his thoughts, a flash of white light appeared in his mind, as if something materialized within his consciousness. Shocked, Li Bing focused to observe the entity. A stream of information unfolded directly in his thoughts. Awaken 1. Lin Shui, female. Ability, 10 square meters of spatial storage. Awaken 1. Wang Han, male. Ability, enhanced strength. Awaken 1. Zhao Qing, female. Ability, safe shelter. Awaken 1. Yin Di, female. Ability, cold resistance. Awaken 1. Ma Sanbiao, male. Ability, wealth affinity. Li Bing stared at the panel in shock. He had assumed he alone held a special power after rebirth. He never imagined there were dozens of other reborn survivors. Hundreds of names were listed in total. He appeared last on the list, yet no information corresponding to him was displayed. Confusion crept over him. Had the system malfunctioned? Li Bing moved to dismiss the panel. After a few seconds of silence, the system sent out another sharp notification. Reborn survivor, Li Bing, male. Ability, 10,000-fold return. What? Li Bing's eyes widened in utter shock. 10,000-fold return. He could not believe how overpowered his ability was. It surpassed all the other abilities combined. If he activated this power, any resources he offered would be multiplied 10,000 times over. He truly was the favored child of fate. Li Bing laughed aloud, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. In his past life, he had been beaten to death by neighbors who wore masks of kindness. He had learned the terrifying depths of human nature, and one person stood at the root of all his suffering. Lin Shui. He no longer thought of her as the woman he admired. All fondness had turned to hatred. He remembered her appearance, seemingly pure on the surface, yet scheming and ruthless within. Li Bing gritted his teeth, overwhelmed by rage. Li Bing worked as a postgraduate researcher in physics, and Lin Shui had been assigned as his research assistant by their supervisor. That was how they grew close, and he became one of her suitors. He had never guessed that Lin Shui would also receive a golden finger system, complete with a 10-square-meter spatial ability. The thought stung deeply. Still, the rule of law remained intact for now, so he suppressed his urge for revenge. I will bide my time. Lin Shui, wait for me. He recognized Ma Sanbiao, the boss of an unregulated loan company with political connections. His business operated as a predatory high-interest lending ring. It surprised Li Bing that a man already wealthy would receive the wealth affinity ability. He struggled to understand how these powers were allocated. He did not know the two other women on the list, but he was familiar with Wang Han, though they were not close. From his past memories, Wang Han had pursued Lin Shui's best friend, merely another hopeless admirer, nothing more. Li Bing let out a cold laugh, stroking his chin as he pondered. 3 of these awakened people were acquaintances of his. He tried to dig deeper through the system interface, yet it offered no instructions on activating 10,000-fold return. All his attempts failed, darkening his expression. Is it necessary to seize the golden fingers of others? The moment the thought crossed his mind, the system responded. Host must seize the golden fingers of other awakened individuals to activate 10,000-fold return. Li Bing narrowed his eyes. His suspicion had been correct. Though he possessed the 10,000-fold return ability, he remained an ordinary human for the time being. He reviewed the connections between the awakened survivors and weighed his options carefully. The spatial storage ability was his most urgent target. His savings of over 100,000 yuan could sustain him for a while once the apocalypse arrived. A spatial ability would let him hoard endless supplies. If he stole Lin Shui's 10-square-meter space, it would multiply into 100,000 square meters under his ability. Excitement ignited within him. With 100,000 square meters of storage, I can stockpile unlimited supplies. After that, I will claim every other ability one by one. The system also revealed the method required to seize another's power. He only needed to witness them demonstrating their golden finger in his presence. A bold plan began to form in Li Bing's mind. Meanwhile, inside an upscale five-star restaurant, Lin Shui sat comfortably in a cushioned booth. Across from her sat an elegant young man. He wore a tailored black designer suit, his hair neatly combed, with sharp, handsome features. A luxury watch rested on his wrist. He was clearly born into wealth. Crystal chandeliers cast soft, colorful light over the table as they enjoyed a French-style steak dinner. Lin Shui wore a refined lace camisole dress. Her long black hair fell loosely over her shoulders. A casual toss of her head revealed the graceful curve of her neck. She lifted a wine glass and took a slow sip, carrying herself with poise. The wealthy young man opposite her watched her intently, swallowing nervously. Lin Shui brushed strands of hair behind her ear, striking a gentle, casual pose. Every gesture was carefully calculated. She understood exactly how to draw men in with her charm. It worked perfectly. The man across the table was Zhang Fan, a well-known rich student at their university. He also had a reputation as a playboy, rumored to have dated countless young women. He was thrilled to have secured this dinner with Lin Shui, for he had long admired her. He believed wealth could win over any woman. Lin Shui's beauty outshone the official campus beauties. Every gesture stirred the hearts of men. "Darling, try this steak I prepared for you. It's imported from Australia. Have a taste. Would you like me to feed you?" Zhang Fan smiled, cut a piece of steak with his fork, and held it out toward her lips. "Wow, Fan, you're amazing. I love steak made by you." Lin Shui tucked her hair back and leaned forward slightly. Zhang Fan's gaze stayed fixed on her, captivated. He happily lifted the fork and fed her the meat. Lin Shui smiled once she finished eating. She was about to coax him into offering her more favors when a flood of unfamiliar memories crashed into her mind. Lin Shui fainted on the spot. Vivid visions of the coming apocalypse overwhelmed her. 1 month later, the sun would vanish, turning the city into a living hell. She saw herself begging for food, enduring humiliation just to survive. The scenes made her feel sick. The images shifted. She watched herself fabricate stories to trick Li Bing into opening his door, then incite the crowd to beat him to death, all to seize his reserves of supplies. The vision shifted again. In the end, she starved to death, fighting over a single biscuit. After a long while, Lin Shui slowly regained consciousness. Carrying these future memories, her face turned pale. She struggled to accept the grim fate awaiting humanity. "Have I gained an ability?" she pondered, as Zhang Fan called out anxiously beside her. "Shui, are you all right? Shall I take you to hospital?" He summoned a waiter and asked for a glass of warm water for her. Lin Shui stared numbly around the luxurious restaurant, still shaken by the visions. Once she recovered, she steadied her expression. After processing everything she had seen, she realized she had obtained a legendary golden finger. She was a reborn survivor with a 10 square meter spatial storage ability, and the apocalypse would arrive in 1 month. A surge of excitement rose inside her. Heaven had granted her a second chance. After sorting everything out, Lin Shui was overcome with joy. She glanced again at the wealthy young man Zhang Fan beside her, her gaze peculiar. Zhang Fan failed to understand what her expression meant. He assumed it was a side effect of her fainting earlier and paid it no mind. Lin Shui pondered for a moment, a flicker of relief crossing her eyes. If previously, Lin Shui merely craved vanity and enjoyed the admiration she received from rich young men like Zhang Fan, as a reborn person, she now harbored entirely different thoughts. Zhang Fan comes from a wealthy family. He must have plenty of money. The end of the world is approaching, and I need ample stockpiles of supplies. Right now, I only have 1,000 yuan on hand. Though I possess a spatial ability to store goods, without cash, I can accomplish nothing. This sum is far from enough. For the time being, the only sensible plan is to find a way to get money from Zhang Fan. Zhang Fan helped Lin Shui to the lounge nearby. Lin Shui rubbed her temples and leaned weakly against his shoulder. Zhang Fan savored the moment as Lin Shui murmured softly, "Brother Fan, I'm so sorry. I've been worn out these days from staying up late constantly, and my body can't take it anymore. I feel terrible for ruining our dinner gathering." Looking at the delicate, vulnerable Lin Shui, Zhang Fan felt no worry. Instead, the scene thrilled him greatly. He loved moments where he could play the hero rescuing a beauty. Zhang Fan feigned concern and asked, "Darling Shui, you must rest more often. If things don't improve, I'll drive you to the hospital for a checkup so you don't develop lingering health issues." As he spoke, Zhang Fan reached out, intending to wrap his arm around Lin Shue's waist. Lin Shue pretended to hesitate, shifting her body sideways and gently pushing his hand away. Brother Fan, I'm still a student. I don't have the money for medical consultations. A hospital visit would cost a huge amount, a heavy burden for me. Let's just forget it. I wouldn't want to spend your money either. Lin Shue folded her arms, looking utterly pitiful. But where no one could see, a trace of triumph flashed in her eyes. Do you really think you can take advantage of me? Not a chance. As a wealthy heir, Zhang Fan was stunned for a second before bursting into laughter. Darling Shue, don't worry about money. That's no trouble at all. What truly concerns me is your health. I'd be heartbroken if you suffered any harm. With that, he pulled out his phone and transferred 50,000 yuan directly to Lin Shue. This money is for your hospital fees. If it isn't enough, just tell me. Cash is the last thing I lack. Lin Shue checked her phone and saw the 50,000 yuan arrive. She accepted the transfer at once, breaking into a bright smile. Thank you, Brother Fan. With this money, I can go get checked. You're so kind to me. After sending the money, Zhang Fan slipped his arm around her waist once more. This time, Lin Shue did not resist and let him hold her waist, yet she blocked all his further attempts to grow intimate. They chatted for a while longer. Then Lin Shue claimed she felt unwell and prepared to leave the restaurant. Zhang Fan drove his sports car and dropped her off near the apartment where she lived. Unlike most university students who stayed in dormitories, Lin Shue rented a small apartment off campus with her best friend. Zhang Fan tried to come inside after arriving, but Lin Shue turned him down, citing her poor health. Reluctantly, Zhang Fan got back into his sports car and drove away. Once he left, Lin Shue entered her apartment. The weak, weary look vanished instantly, replaced by a cold smirk. Oomph, Zhang Fan, foolish man. He thinks he's something special just because his father is rich. He wants to gain favors from me. Impossible. She opened her phone to check the 50,000 yuan again. Holding the bouquet of flowers and expensive perfume gift box Zhang Fan had given her, she sent him a sweet message. Thank you for the gifts, Brother Fan. Let's go watch a movie together next time. I'm really looking forward to it. Meanwhile, Zhang Fan was brimming with satisfaction as he drove. In his mind, no woman could resist his wealth. He believed spending 50,000 yuan today had brought him much closer to Lin Shue. He was confident he could deepen their relationship on their next outing. If things did not go smoothly, it only meant he hadn't spent enough money, and he had endless funds to use. With that thought, he pressed harder on the gas, his sports car roaring down the city streets. Hey, Ruru, where are you? Are you free? I'll pick you up to watch a movie. Zhang Fan carried on with his carefree lifestyle. Back in the rental apartment, Lin Shue paced restlessly. She was ecstatic after discovering her superpower, already devising ways to earn funds and stockpile supplies. Lin Shue focused her mind, trying to transport a pack of instant noodles into her ability space. To her delight, the noodles vanished from her hands and appeared within the spatial zone. She used her thoughts again to retrieve the noodles, and they returned to her grasp. Just as she rejoiced, imagining she could hoard endless supplies for the doomsday, a notification echoed in her mind. Host Lin Shue, ability space, 10 square meters. Each use consumes 1 day of your lifespan. The joyful mood crashed instantly. Lin Shue nearly screamed from shock. She rushed to a mirror and examined her face carefully. Seeing no visible changes, she breathed a sigh of relief. Scared me half to death. My looks are my greatest asset. If my lifespan keeps getting cut short, I'll lose my biggest advantage. I have this golden finger, but I must use it cautiously from now on. She finally understood her ability carried a hidden cost. Every time she accessed the spatial storage, 1 day of her life vanished. It unsettled her, yet she could endure it for the moment. She was only 20 years old, young and beautiful. Though each usage cost her a day of life, the price remained bearable for now. Lin Shue spritzed some perfume on herself, resolving never to use her power recklessly again. I have to stockpile supplies as soon as possible. Even if the doomsday never comes, having a storage space for goods will benefit me. Having made up her mind, she grabbed her phone and placed orders non-stop, planning to spend all 50,000 yuan wisely. She avoided wasteful purchases. First, she spent 20,000 yuan on food and drinks. Another 10,000 went towards several sets of nice clothing. She reserved the remaining 20,000 yuan to buy different kinds of meat she liked. The apartment door opened again. A cute, girlish young woman named Qin Tong stepped inside. Wow, Xiao Shue, you look so cheerful. Did you go out on another date? Qin Tong smiled and teased her. Qin Tong was Lin Shue's closest friend. They attended the same class and shared this rental unit, nearly inseparable except when going out on dates. Lin Shue rolled her eyes at Qin Tong. Haha, Xiao Tong, You're all dressed up too. Don't talk about me. Who have you been meeting? Hee hee. Xiao Shui, let's stop poking fun at each other. I met that tall guy today. I'm nowhere near as attractive as you are. I don't draw nearly as much attention. Qin Tong took off her outerwear and removed her makeup as she chatted with Lin Shui. Xiao Shui, this is unusual. You bought so many clothes and groceries. Did some guy send you money again? But why stock up on so many cans? After finishing her makeup removal, Qin Tong noticed piles of goods filling the entire room, barely lingering space to stand. She grew confused. She knew Lin Shui usually spent most of her money on cosmetics and social outings, not bulk food purchases. They chatted for a short while before Lin Shui fell silent. After hesitating repeatedly, she gritted her teeth and decided to share the truth with Qin Tong. She told her everything about the doomsday she remembered from her previous life. At first, Qin Tong thought Lin Shui was rambling nonsense. But Lin Shui spoke with complete sincerity and repeated her warning seriously. Seeing Lin Shui was not joking, Qin Tong grew wary and stared at her doubtfully. Xiao Shui, are you certain what you say is real? Will the end of the world arrive in a month? Xiao Tong, really? I trusted you enough to tell you this. Can't you believe me? The visions I experienced in my past life felt utterly genuine. I also saw what would happen to you. You starved to death when the apocalypse arrived. These words swayed Qin Tong. She began to consider Lin Shui's claim of being reborn. After all, Lin Shui was her best friend. There was no reason to lie to her. All right, I believe you are reborn. After a long conversation, you mean you have a spatial ability? Qin Tong covered her mouth, eyes wide with disbelief. Why would I lie? I'm only telling you because you're my best friend. Have you awakened any powers? Do you feel anything unusual? A hint of pride appeared in Lin Shui's eyes. When around her best friend, she always wanted to stay one step ahead, proving she was superior. Especially now that she owned a spatial ability while Qin Tong had none. The sense of superiority was overwhelming. Hearing this, Qin Tong looked dejected, filled with nothing but envy. Where Lin Shui could not see, a flash of malice flickered across her face. Sigh, I'm just an ordinary person. I can never compare to you. Xiao Shui, it seems you truly are the chosen one. Can you show me your ability space? Lin Shui could barely contain her grin. The rush of superiority was incredibly satisfying. Don't be upset, Xiao Tong. Maybe your power hasn't awakened yet. Even if you never get an ability, it's fine. You're my best friend. I'll look after you once the apocalypse comes. With a hard-to-hide smirk, Lin Shui offered a few casual comforting words before demonstrating her power. She waved her hand, and the piles of clothing, luxury bags, cans and bottled water scattered across the room vanished instantly. The display stunned Qin Tong, who stared at Lin Shui with unmasked envy. See? I'm amazing, right? This is the power of the chosen one. Lin Shui folded her arms across her chest, looking down on Qin Tong with obvious superiority. She was about to continue speaking when her expression suddenly darkened, and she fell quiet. Xiao Shui, what's wrong? You look pale all of a sudden. And nothing. I'm just worn out from today. I want to head to my room and rest. Lin Shui forced an awkward smile and hurried to her bedroom. A system notification had echoed inside her body just now. Using ability space once. Lifespan reduced by 2 days. That was the reason for her sudden unease. She clearly recalled the first use only cost 1 day of life. Now, the second use claimed 2 days. Does this side effect grow exponentially each time I use the power? Lin Shui touched her face anxiously. Even with her spatial ability, she feared this hidden penalty. Her appearance remained her most valuable asset. Would the next use cost 4 days? And the one after that, 8? If this pattern continues, I only have a limited number of times I can activate it. This incident taught Lin Shui to be far more careful and avoid careless use of her power. She discovered she could remove stored items freely without restrictions. Only placing objects into the space drained her lifespan. This eased her worries slightly. The penalty was still manageable for the time being. I must be extra cautious activating the space in the future and speed up my supply preparations. Lin Shui examined her 10 square meter ability space. Most of the supplies she purchased tonight were already stored inside, occupying the majority of the space, with roughly 4 square meters remaining empty. New thoughts formed in her mind. That's right. Li Bing has quite a bit of savings. Maybe I can convince him to give me money. No, not trick him, get him to offer it willingly. I still have 4 square meters of space left to fill. I heard the space can be upgraded, but first I should fill the remaining storage. Money will make everything easier. Then I can consider upgrading the space afterward. Determined, Lin Shui picked up her phone and dialed Li Bing's number. Ring, ring, ring. Li Bing lay on the sofa watching television. After a full day of rest, he had fully recovered his energy and a rough plan had taken shape in his mind. The TV broadcast the latest local news. Reports say an elderly man became an overnight millionaire after buying a lottery ticket. Such events are truly incredible. Another ability user, Li Bing, thought coldly. Li Bing had spent hours researching information online, slowly piecing together the current situation. His system's description of awakened ability users echoed in his thoughts, and clues he found online confirmed these people possessed extraordinary powers. It seems this rebirth brought massive changes to the world. Many people have awakened superpowers, and I am not the only one. From what I've found, there are already hundreds of awakened individuals. Li Bing kept scrolling through online posts. Fireworks fall. Guys, great news. I've got an ability system. Ha ha, I'm the chosen one. I can produce unlimited fresh water. I can sell it to anyone who wants. Little chilly. TCH, who needs your water? I have enough water at home to last me 20 years. Your so-called power isn't impressive. No cilantro. I witnessed something bizarre today. A man claimed he had powers and summoned fire from his palms right in front of everyone. The incident even aired on local television news. Piggy, that defies all science. If this got on the show Unsolved Mysteries, they could make at least 20 episodes about it. Wolf King. Could this be the revival of spiritual energy? Are the events in web novels real? Have we truly entered an era of cultivation? What do you all think? Dog Dan, if cultivation really exists, I'm definitely a top-tier genius. Ha ha ha, I'll surpass all of you someday. Respect. Reading these comments, Li Bing felt certain. The dark matter spatial folding experiment conducted by the United States had gone wrong, triggering mutations in countless humans and birthing these so-called ability users. Li Bing stroked his chin and prepared to continue browsing when an incoming call from Lin Shui popped up on his screen. Seeing her name, memories rushed back. In his previous life, Lin Shui had been his girlfriend. They were still together in this timeline, not yet broken up. Li Bing remembered that 3 days after the apocalypse began, his own supplies ran low. Lin Shui abandoned him without hesitation to seek shelter with a wealthy survivor. Before that, she had pretended to work merely as his research assistant, while secretly dating him. She insisted their relationship stay hidden, so they maintained a secret romance. Publicly, they acted like ordinary colleagues. Behind closed doors, Li Bing covered nearly all of Lin Shui's daily expenses. It was only after she left that Li Bing realized he had wasted 2 years fawning over her. Now all those confusing details from my past life make sense. Li Bing stared at the vibrating phone, choosing not to answer Lin Shui's call immediately. He connected all the scattered memories, and everything fell into place. She refused to make our relationship public so she could stay seemingly single and line up multiple potential partners. What a manipulative woman. She's eaten my food and lived off my money, and I've been nothing but a fool for 2 whole years. Now she's calling me. She must be after more cash again. Li Bing's thoughts raced, his heart turning ice cold. He would never feel anything for Lin Shui this time. Still, he could not reveal his true feelings yet, and answered the call. Hello. Li Bing did not even bother to say another word. Bing, have you gone to sleep? I've been studying at school all day, and I'm exhausted. I just got back. Lin Shui's sweet, cloying voice traveled through the phone to Li Bing's ears. If this had happened in his past life, Li Bing would have fussed over her eagerly. But not this time. Oh, Li Bing replied flatly. Lin Shui fell silent on the other end. Taken aback, that women's intuition told her Li Bing was unusually cold today. His attitude was completely different from just a few days ago, as if he had become a new person. Lin Shui rolled her eyes and resorted to soft, coquettish tones once more. Bing, don't you like me anymore? Or did I do something to upset you? I really spent the whole day in the laboratory today. A cold smirk tugged at Li Bing's lips. He did not call her out. This woman lied constantly. He was certain she had secretly met another man behind his back today. Yet he kept quiet, wearing an amused smile. He wanted to see exactly what scheme she was plotting. Nothing. I'm just worn out. If you have something to say, just get to the point. Li Bing lay casually on his sofa, holding a can of beer. Bing, our landlord said the rent for the apartment is almost due. I don't have any money to pay it. I'm really stuck. If worst comes to worst, I'll have to move back to the dorm. But the dorm is dirty and unpleasant. It's impossible to stay there. What am I supposed to do, Bing? Li Bing let out a cold laugh. So Lin Shui was coming after him again, looking for someone to support her. She wanted more money. Li Bing recalled that in his past life, he had spent at least 300,000 or 400,000 on her. He bought her designer bags and clothes, and covered every single meal they shared. All of that money came from his hard work at part-time jobs. What's more, the apartment she lived in was rented by him. The lease was not due yet, which proved how habitual her lying had become. She must be trying to save money to stockpile supplies. Li Bing's eyes turned frigid, and he clenched his fists subconsciously. She was still never satisfied, truly treating him like an easy mark. If Li Bing had just been reborn and learned the truth, he would have yelled at her and exposed Lin Shue's hypocrisy. But he held back now. A bigger plan was forming in his mind. He knew Lin Shue possessed a spatial ability, though she had never told him about it. Seizing her ability would require careful planning. Although he now had the 10,000-fold return system, it had not yet activated. He could only claim another person's spatial power to make it his own. At the end of the day, he was still an ordinary human. His only advantage right now was Lin Shue's trust in him, which he would use to take her spatial ability. With that thought, Li Bing softened his tone. Though his eyes remained cold, he spoke gently to Lin Shue. Don't worry, Shue. I'm here. If the apartment lease is almost up, I can buy you a larger place. Let's get married. What do you say? Huh? Lin Shue was stunned. She never imagined this rigid, stereotypical engineering student would say something like this. She could not process it right away. I don't think this is such a good idea. I haven't prepared for anything at all. Lin Shue stammered. Li Bing's proposal completely caught her off guard. She had only intended to ask Li Bing for some money. She never expected such a huge surprise. Li Bing knew exactly what she was thinking. He pretended to sound hurt. What's wrong, Shue? Don't you love me? I'm willing to buy you a house just to marry you. The property deed can have only your name on it. I'll cover the down payment. No, that's not it, Bingo. Of course I know you love me deeply. It's just that your idea came out of nowhere. I need a couple of days to think about it, okay? Lin Shue felt a mix of excitement and shock. She was thrilled that this devoted Li Bing was prepared to purchase a house for her. Yet she was shocked by his marriage proposal, which put her in a difficult spot. Truth be told, she never thought highly of Li Bing. With her looks, she could easily marry a wealthy young heir. But the prospect of getting a house from Li Bing made her hesitant to let go. Besides, even if she could find a rich heir, she knew most wealthy young men were fickle. They might discard her at any moment. If she kept Li Bing as a safety net, she would have reliable support while she sought out richer men. Thinking this through, Lin Shue let out a sweet laugh. Bingo, I know you treat me better than anyone. That puts my mind at ease. How about you take me to look at houses tomorrow? We can discuss marriage 1 month from now. We can sort out all the wedding plans then. This news is far too sudden right now. I need this month to talk things over with my family. After a month, we can announce our relationship and go get our marriage certificate. Does that sound good? Lin Shue scoffed inwardly. What a delusional man. She would never have agreed if not for the house. In her mind, she only needed to secure the house first. It would serve as a safe haven for the end times. Even if the apocalypse never came, it would still be property under her name. She could not lose either way. She just needed to stall him for a month. Her pride grew stronger as she thought about it. Faced with this ordinary man who doted on her, she believed any sacrifice he made was only natural. I suppose you'll just have to bear this, Li Bing. After all, you're my boyfriend. Lin Shue mused silently. Very well, Shue. If you agree to marry me, I'll do anything for you. Li Bing spoke with feigned infatuation. He knew Lin Shue's intentions perfectly well, and this was all part of his plan. Through their conversation, Li Bing also confirmed a critical fact. Apart from him, no one knew about all ability users in this world. Others would awaken powers randomly, unaware other ability users existed. This works perfectly. Li Bing arranged to meet her early the next morning to view properties, then hung up the phone. Love you. See you tomorrow. Lin Shue smiled sweetly and ended the call as well. The moment Li Bing hung up, a wave of disgust washed over him. He checked the time. It was Friday. Tomorrow and the day after would be the weekend. Right. There were still 4 days left of the May Day holiday, more than enough time for him to set everything in motion. Li Bing smiled, checked his bank balance, roughly 180,000 yuan. It would suffice. Then he drifted off to sleep. The countdown hovering before his eyes now read 28 days. Meanwhile, Lin Shue lay in bed, gazing at her reflection in the mirror, admiring her appearance. She let out a faint, dismissive chuckle. I only planned to borrow some money, but I got an unexpected bonus. This works out. I'll claim the house first. It will be my safeguard once the end times arrive. Early the next morning, Li Bing rose, showered, and tidied himself up. He put on his tailored suit. Standing 185 centimeters tall, the suit accentuated his figure and made him look exceptionally poised. Paired with a pair of thin-rimmed gold glasses, he looked like a refined, erudite scholar. Any woman would be captivated at the sight of him. After breakfast, Li Bing drove to the city's central square, the meeting spot he had agreed on with Lin Shue. When he arrived, Lin Shue was already waiting inside a cafe nearby. She stepped out when she spotted Li Bing. Lin Shue looked fresh and simple today. Her hair was tied into a ponytail with a few loose strands framing her face. She wore a pale yellow off-shoulder top and a knee-length white skirt. Her light, brisk steps made her look pure, lovely, and striking. Coupled with her bright smile, she could charm almost anyone. But Li Bing's gaze remained icy. There was no denying Lin Xue's beauty. She was among the most attractive women he had met since university. Yet memories of her vile conduct erased all attraction instantly. He did not want to have any physical contact with her at all. Still, he maintained a gentle smile, and Lin Xue naturally slipped her hand into his. "Bingge, you look so handsome today." Lin Xue complimented him. She might have meant it, or she might simply be eager to get him to spend money. "Really?" Li Bing paused briefly. "She really still sees me as a fool." Li Bing thought to himself, "I'll let her enjoy herself for a few more days. But soon enough, she'll be begging for mercy." Just as Li Bing zoned out, another voice spoke from behind him. "You ordinary guy clean up well, but you're still nowhere near as good-looking as my boyfriend." Li Bing looked up and saw Qin Tong standing behind him. "Tong Tong, you shouldn't say that. He's my boyfriend. At the very least, he's taller than your boyfriend." Lin Xue retorted. Even though they were close friends, Li Bing knew she was not defending him out of affection. She only wanted to protect her own pride and avoid being outshone by her so-called best friend. Qin Tong wore heavy makeup and a denim top that accentuated her figure. A beauty mark sat beneath one eye, lending her an alluring look when she smiled. Though not as beautiful as Lin Xue, she still possessed considerable charm. Truly fake friendship. Li Bing observed their exchange silently, choosing not to speak. After they bickered for a moment, Lin Xue spoke again. "Tong Tong had nothing planned today, so she's coming along to help us look at houses. What do we need her for? She'll only get in the way." Li Bing refused flatly. "What's your problem? Having a beautiful woman tag along isn't a good thing? I might even be able to bargain the price down for you." Qin Tong huffed at Li Bing. "No particular reason. I'd rather only the two of us go." Li Bing's tone turned cold. He refused to let anyone disrupt his plan, especially a third party. Li Bing. Don't think you're special just because your girlfriend has a spatial ability. Let me tell you, my boyfriend has an ability too. Don't act so arrogant. You're nothing more than a man chasing after her." Qin Tong snapped angrily. Qin Tong had only found out about Lin Xue's spatial ability the previous night. She had felt upset knowing she had no powers of her own, until she called her boyfriend and learned he had awakened an ability. He possessed superhuman strength, which eased her worries greatly. Then she saw Li Bing taking Lin Xue to view housing that morning. She assumed Li Bing already knew Lin Xue had spatial powers, and Lin Xue had told him everything, so he was trying his best to win her favor. "What? Lin Xue has a spatial ability?" Li Bing feigned shock, then wore a hurt expression. He turned to Lin Xue. "Xue, tell me, is everything Qin Tong said true? Why didn't you tell me?" Lin Xue's expression turned awkward, tugging at Qin Tong to stop her from talking further. Before Lin Xue could explain, Qin Tong stepped between them, looking triumphant as she spoke to Li Bing. "You don't know this country bumpkin? News has spread online. The world is changing. Many people are awakening abilities, and Lin Xue is one of them. Her power is spatial storage." Qin Tong paused. Li Bing noticed a flicker of disappointment cross her face, sorrow over lacking an ability herself. I bet you don't know my boyfriend awakened the strength ability. He's incredibly powerful. He could knock you flat with one punch. You probably have no idea how drastically the world is shifting. Are you afraid of being powerless in this new era, so you latched onto Lin Xue for her ability? Isn't that the truth?" Qin Tong finished speaking and stared directly at Li Bing. Li Bing kept up his act, eyes wide with apparent disbelief. Of course he knew everything, but he needed to keep performing. He was glad someone had spilled this information, paving the way for his next move. "Xue, is what she said real? Do you truly have a spatial ability? Why did you hide it from me?" Li Bing asked with a tone of hurt. "Don't be upset, Bingge. I was planning to tell you. Everything happened so suddenly, I could barely accept it myself. I meant to bring it up last night, but Qin Tong cut in and spilled everything first. Honestly, Bingge, you aren't even worried about how I feel. You're just questioning me. Do you not love me anymore?" Lin Xue's voice trembled, and she turned the accusation back on him with a sorrowful look. "I see. How could I blame you? I was only worried about you." Li Bing felt a surge of disgust. He was long used to Lin Xue's dramatic act, yet he forced himself to respond. "TCH, I think Li Bing only wants your spatial ability. He stands to gain everything, and he doesn't deserve you at all. Lin Xue, open your eyes. He's only after your power." Qin Tong rolled her eyes and let out a scoff. "Tong Tong, watch your words. Li Bing truly doesn't know anything. I never told him. He loves me sincerely." Lin Xue quickly pulled Qin Tong back, urging her to stop talking. "You don't have any ability yourself. Why boast just because your boyfriend has powers? You might not know this, but your boyfriend has already broken up with you. Li Bing's voice turned icy as he shot back. He knew Qin Tong's boyfriend, Wang Han, a sports student from their university who had awakened the strength ability. He had never interacted much with Wang Han, but he remembered clearly what happened in the apocalypse. Once disaster struck, Wang Han viewed Qin Tong as a burden and abandoned her for another woman. Li Bing could tell the man was fickle. He was only playing with Qin Tong for now. The moment a better option appeared, he would discard her, especially now that he had an ability. You're lying. My boyfriend treats me so well. He brings me meals and looks after me carefully. He would never betray me. Qin Tong bared her teeth, fiercely defending her fragile hope. Don't believe me? Call him right now and find out for yourself. Li Bing crossed his arms, looking down at her dismissively. Qin Tong's face clouded with anxiety. Tears welled up as she quickly pulled out her phone and dialed Wang Han. Hello, Wang Han. What are you doing? Oh, Qin Tong. Sorry, we're done. We aren't compatible. Let's break up. Wang Han's tone was flat. In the background, another woman's sweet voice could be heard. Wang Han, who's that? It's nothing. Just my ex who can't let go. I'll sort this out right now. We have no ties anymore. Don't contact me again. There's nothing between us. Wang Han hung up. Qin Tong stood frozen on the spot. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Heh, am I right, Miss Qin? Now that Wang Han has an ability, how could he stay with an ordinary person like you? Let go of this fantasy before you embarrass yourself further. Li Bing delivered another sharp remark. Qin Tong sank into despair, burying her face in her knees and crying. Lin Shui shot Li Bing a sharp glare, then hurried over to comfort her without saying a word. Tong, I told you Wang Han was no good. It's for the best that you found out early. Not everyone awakens abilities anyway. Maybe you'll meet another powerful ability user later, right? Don't cry, Xiaotong. If things really can't work out, you can win Wang Han back again. After all, Wang Han is an ability user. He's a highly sought-after person right now. Plenty of people must be chasing him. Other female students are bound to be curious about ability users too, don't you think? Li Bing stood there, quietly watching Lin Shui put on an act. On the surface, she was offering comfort, but in truth, she was showing off her spatial ability. Li Bing could not help sneering at this pair of fake friends who competed with each other no matter what happened. What was more, it was Qin Tong who had spoken harshly to him first. He had merely stated the facts, yet Qin Tong could not accept it. She only had herself to blame for being too fragile. After this commotion, Li Bing knew their plan to buy a house would likely be put on hold, but he had no intention of giving up. Lin Shui was about to head back to their accommodation with Qin Tong to let her rest. He quickly stepped forward to stop her. Shui, we agreed we'd go house hunting today. Why are you leaving now? Are we going to put off buying the house because of her? Sigh. Li Bing, I know you mean well, but you shouldn't have said what you did. Qin Tong must be extremely upset now, and I need to stay with her. As her best friend, I have to accompany her home so she can recover over the next few days. I don't think we can buy the house today. Someone has to look after Qin Tong. She's really pitiful, isn't she? Lin Shui sighed and helped Qin Tong up, preparing to leave. Li Bing blocked her path, his expression earnest. Shui, how about this? Give me your ID card. I'll go ahead and complete the house purchase today and register the property under your name. You can go back and stay with Qin Tong. There's no need for you to come along with me. Once all the paperwork is finished, I'll hand the property deed straight to you. I truly care about you. Whether you have special abilities or not, you will always be the one I love most. Seeing Li Bing's sincere look, Lin Shui felt a surge of emotion. She believed every word he said. She had never told Li Bing that she possessed a spatial ability. It seemed Li Bing only had her in his thoughts, and this strengthened her trust in him. She pulled out her ID card and handed it over to him. She had planned to buy a house anyway. Qin Tong's outburst had only interrupted their plans. As Qin Tong's closest friend, she could not abandon her. Li Bing was conveniently taking care of this matter for her. There was no reason for her to refuse, and she readily agreed. A charming smile spread across Lin Shui's face. Thank you, darling. I'm so lucky to have you. Everything I do for our future is worthwhile. Li Bing fought back the revulsion rising inside him, maintaining a warm smile as he spoke. The moment he took hold of Lin Shui's ID card and turned away, the grin on his face vanished, replaced by icy coldness. With Lin Shui's ID card in hand, the rest would be straightforward. Lin Shui and Qin Tong hailed a taxi and headed home. Li Bing got into his car and drove toward the city's most luxurious villa district. Located on the outskirts of Dongluo City, the area boasted beautiful scenery and lush greenery. 3-story villas stood one after another across the land. This villa complex was exactly what Li Bing was looking for. It was sparsely populated, free from disturbance, and the perfect location for surviving the end of the world. Li Bing drove straight to the sales office of the villa district. Few people were inside. Only 3 or 4 groups of customers were viewing properties. Most sales staff sat listlessly in their chairs scrolling through their phones. It was clear that very few people could afford villas of this standard. As soon as Li Bing walked in, a young woman with a ponytail wearing a formal blazer stepped up to greet him. Her smart outfit accentuated her fair skin. "Hello, sir. Are you here to view properties?" She flashed a neat white-toothed smile and greeted him warmly. "Yes. Show me the finest villas you have here." The woman's eyes lit up. She instantly knew this was a high-value client. "Dear sir, my name is Lu Yingying. You can call me Xiaoying. I will assist you throughout your visit." After speaking, Xiaoying stole a glance at Li Bing's handsome profile, her cheeks flushing slightly, before leading him toward the villas. "Mr. Li, take a look at this property. It spans 500 square meters. This 3-story villa offers 200 square meters of space on each floor. Outside, there is an independent 300 square meter courtyard, a private swimming pool at the rear, plus a small golf putting green. This villa is priced at 8 million yuan. What do you think? No one lives within a 1-kilometer radius. You will be our most valued resident here, guaranteed complete peace and quiet away from others. Does this suit your needs?" Li Bing toured the villa thoroughly, and everything matched what the saleswoman had described. With no residents within 1 kilometer, the surrounding land would effectively be his territory. In time, he could transform the entire area into his stronghold for the end of the world. Once he finished his inspection, Li Bing nodded in approval. "This place is ideal. When can I move in and receive the property deed?" "Mr. Li, if we complete all formalities now, you can move in immediately. I can have the property deed ready for you by tomorrow. There is also a special offer for purchases made today. A 200 square meter underground storage room beneath the villa will be provided completely free of charge. What do you think?" Lu Yingying spoke enthusiastically as she outlined the purchase terms. Her heart raced at the thought of closing such a large deal. She would earn at least 10% commission, a full 800,000 yuan. That sum was more than she could earn in a whole year of work. Li Bing turned and looked directly at Lu Yingying. His attractive features made her cheeks grow warm. "Yes, sir. This villa meets my requirements. Let's proceed with the purchase and complete the paperwork right now," Li Bing said plainly and handed her Lin Shue's ID card. Lu Yingying gasped, unable to contain her excitement. She had only worked at the company for a short time and never imagined she would land such a huge sale. Her bonus would be substantial. She hurried off like an eager rabbit to prepare all the documents. "Sir, what payment method will you choose? Full payment or an installment plan?" "Installments. 0 down payment loan." Lu Yingying bowed to Li Bing and began processing the paperwork. She had assumed Li Bing was a wealthy heir, but now a hint of disdain crept into her mind. He seemed unable to afford the property outright and was relying on a 0 down loan. Still, no matter whether he could repay the mortgage later or not, her commission was guaranteed. Cheered by this thought, Lu Yingying smiled broadly and continued processing the loan application. Li Bing noticed the fleeting contempt in Lu Yingying's eyes, yet he paid it no mind. Such people were naturally judgmental. As long as she finished the paperwork for him, everything was fine. Li Bing pulled out 1,000 yuan and handed it to Lu Yingying as a tip, urging her to speed up the process and get the property deed issued on the same day. Money makes the world go round. After receiving the tip, Lu Yingying's hands trembled with excitement. She treated Li Bing with even greater enthusiasm. Li Bing only needed to sit on the sofa while she ran back and forth to handle every single procedure. By nightfall, all formalities were completed. He held the property deed registered under Lin Shue's name alongside the loan statement. The loan term stretched for 20 years, and with interest, the total amount repayable reached 10 million yuan. Monthly repayments stood at 40,000 yuan. Li Bing stared at the deed and repayment list and let out a cold laugh. This was the first gift he had prepared for Lin Shue. Although the property bore her name, it would ultimately belong to him. He planned to build his doomsday stronghold within this villa, while Lin Shue would be saddled with the debt. After sorting everything out, Li Bing drove back to his current residence. His existing house was only around 100 square meters. It had cost him a considerable sum when he bought it, but it would be far too small once the end of the world arrived. He needed far more space to carry out his plans. When he got home, Li Bing lay down on his bed, ate a meal, and took a photo of the property deed together with snapshots of the villa. He sent all of them to Lin Shue. "Shue, I've purchased the villa in full, and it is registered under your name." Lin Shue had been looking after Qin Tong after returning home, yet her mind kept wandering. She wondered whether Li Bing could complete the house purchase. Judging by how devoted he had always been to her, she believed he would succeed. When she saw the message, she nearly jumped out of bed. She had expected Li Bing to buy an ordinary apartment, never imagining he would secure a 3-story villa. Judging by the photos he sent, the property was extremely valuable. Lin Shue's hands shook as she held her phone. She could not believe Li Bing would lavish such an expensive gift on her. Her heart raced and her face flushed with excitement. Could my charm be so great that Li Bing is utterly captivated by me? He is willing to spend such a large sum to buy a house for me. For a moment, genuine emotion welled up inside her. Lin Shui knew Li Bing was not especially wealthy. While his salary was decent, he could never afford a villa like this ordinarily. Since you care for me so deeply, if the end of the world truly arrives someday, I will consider reserving a place for you. At this moment, Lin Shui was genuinely touched by Li Bing's grand gesture. She even began thinking about his welfare. She quickly typed a reply. I love you so much, darling. I never expected you to treat me this well. Such a huge villa. I feel incredibly blessed. Kisses. I'll come collect the property deed from you tomorrow. Li Bing stared at the emojis Lin Shui sent and felt a surge of disgust. This woman was shallow and a master of pretense, still hiding her true motives even now. Swear, to show my love for you, I plan to formally propose to you in 1 month. I will give you the property deed on that day as well. Li Bing sent the message casually. He had no intention of handing over the deed. He still had big plans for it. His words were merely a ploy. He was certain Lin Shui was completely carried away by excitement. I'll be waiting for you. Kisses. They exchanged a few more messages afterward, and the day drew to a close. The countdown continued, with 27 days remaining. With all matters settled, Li Bing lay on his bed feeling relieved. With just a few simple words, he had fooled Lin Shui completely. She wanted to take advantage of my money. She needs to know her place. She owes me 4 to 500,000 yuan. This time I will make her pay every cent back with interest. This is only the beginning. Li Bing's heart turned cold, and he rolled over to sleep. Meanwhile, Lin Shui clutched her phone and repeatedly viewed the villa photos. She was far too excited to sleep all night, and even shared the news with Qin Tong. After hearing this, Qin Tong fell silent. She was still recovering from her breakup with Wang Han, and envy filled her heart. Swear, I wish I had a boyfriend like yours. Wang Han is terrible. Hey, didn't you say Li Bing was overreaching and not good enough for me? What changed your mind all of a sudden? I only said that on impulse. I thought he was only after my spatial ability, but I never knew Li Bing was this wealthy and willing to buy a house for me without hesitation. Where can I find such a good man? Why can't I meet someone like him? Qin Tong looked dejected, while Lin Shui was utterly triumphant and overjoyed. Comparisons between people only bring frustration. Qin Shui envied Lin Shui for finding someone like Li Bing. Her earlier remarks felt like a bitter joke that slapped her in the face. Li Bing woke up feeling refreshed the next morning. He unlocked his phone and browsed recent news headlines. Breaking news. A person awakens the shrink ability, able to reduce objects to 1/10 of their original size. Shocking report. The expand ability emerges, allowing users to enlarge physical objects. The era of supernatural powers begins. More ability users awaken every day. Li Bing scanned the flood of trending news. He knew more and more people were awakening abilities, and the world was growing increasingly interesting. Some gained the expand ability, others the shrink ability. There were those who could withstand extreme cold, and those who wielded fire. Every awakened person possessed a unique power. Li Bing suspected that scattered across the world, many clever ability users chose to hide their powers. They understood that once authorities discovered them, they would face trouble. It was possible the government would intervene. Just as he predicted, after a day and night of circulation, all these news posts vanished without a trace. Even related keywords could no longer be searched. The government had begun to crack down. Such news would spark widespread panic among ordinary citizens, so the authorities chose to suppress it. Those ability users who had exposed themselves might well have been taken into custody. After confirming this information, Li Bing grew even more cautious. He had no supernatural ability or spatial storage power. For now, he was merely an ordinary person. But he held an advantage no one else possessed. He was reborn from the future and knew the identities of every ability user. That was his greatest asset. What was more, his 10,000-fold return system had yet to activate. Li Bing got ready, headed down to a breakfast shop, and ordered tofu pudding and 2 steamer baskets of soup dumplings. He ate heartily. Aunt Guo from the neighborhood committee happened to be sitting nearby having breakfast. As soon as she spotted Li Bing, she moved over to sit beside him. Li Bing frowned and said nothing, continuing his meal. From his memories, Aunt Guo was someone who always sought petty gains. She had a daughter who dropped out of school at a young age. The girl was overweight and plain-looking, idle all day with no university education. Li Bing knew little else about her. Yet Aunt Gua acted as though she had met her own son. She sat directly opposite Li Bing and helped herself to one of his soup dumplings. Li Bing was irritated. Even small portions of food were money he had paid for. Before he could speak, Aunt Gua smiled, her wrinkled face crumpling like orange peel. Xiao Li, you really are an outstanding young man. A top university graduate. Truly impressive. Hee, you flatter me, Aunt Gua. I only studied for a few extra years. There are countless people more capable than me. Is there something you wanted to talk to me about? Aunt Gua's eyes lit up and she leaned closer. Li Bing frowned, shifting his seat away from her, yet she paid no attention and spoke in a mysterious tone. Xiao Li, you're not getting any younger and you're still single. How about I set you up with someone? My daughter is beautiful, gentle, and thoughtful. She'd make you a wonderful wife. You won't regret it. We won't ask for an excessive bride price. Just 100,000 yuan will suffice. Aunt Gua said proudly. Li Bing nearly choked on the dumpling in his mouth. Her daughter was overweight and unattractive. Yet she described her as beautiful, gentle, and thoughtful. He struggled not to gag at the description. He could not fathom how Aunt Gua could praise her daughter so shamelessly. And demanding 100,000 yuan as a bride price? Not a single cent would be worth paying for her daughter. More importantly, rumors had spread around the neighborhood. Her daughter had been seeing a young troublemaker and fallen pregnant. The man had run off, leaving her alone. Aunt Gua was clearly hoping Li Bing would take responsibility for another man's child. Hee, Aunt Gua, your daughter sounds lovely. I'm used to living alone, and I'm simply not good enough for her. You'd better find someone else. Li Bing refused bluntly. Aunt Gua's face darkened, her glare sharp enough to cut. You look like a smart young man, yet you're so ungrateful. I took the initiative to match you with my daughter. Many men would count themselves lucky to marry her, yet you turn me down. You don't know what you're missing. Dozens of promising men have asked to court her, and I turned them all away. I picked you because you're handsome and have a stable job. Few people get such an offer. Marrying my daughter would be your fortune. Li Bing drained the last of his tofu pudding, wiped his mouth, and stood up to leave. He glanced back at Aunt Gua and said calmly, Aunt Gua, do you know what the most annoying creature in the world is? It's noisy dogs that cannot read the room and snap at people for no reason. With that, he walked away without looking back. Aunt Gua flew into a rage behind him. You rascal! How dare you insult me? I won't hold back. I'll argue with you to the end. She threw herself onto the ground and wailed. Help! Someone is bullying an elderly woman. Li Bing paid her no heed and got into his car to drive off. The unpleasant encounter ruined his breakfast, and his expression remained grim. She wanted him to take on another man's child and tried to trick him. There was no way he would agree. Li Bing cared nothing for blind obedience to traditions or empty politeness. If anyone irritated him, he would always fight back. Li Bing drove toward the Dongluo City Exchange District. The area housed numerous loan centers and banks. Though it was not the city center, all essential financial institutions could be found here. He arrived at a large office building. It was usually packed with office workers, but the ongoing holidays meant far fewer visitors on this day. Carrying a stack of documents, he headed straight to the largest loan firm in town, Ma Sanbiao Loans. There were no polished female loan consultants here. Only a group of idle underlings loitered in the lobby. Several of them were engrossed in a card game. 3 pairs. I've got a bomb. Damn it, Xiao Sanzi, are you cheating? A bald man covered in a thick beard, a cigarette dangling from his lips, pointed angrily at the scrawny young man beside him. If Old Wolf can't stand losing, don't play. Hand over the 500 yuan on the table. I, Xiao Sanzi, have wandered the streets for years, and I never cheat anyone. With that, Xiao Sanzi grinned, snatched the 500 yuan from the bald man's side, and was about to start a new round, brimming with satisfaction. Cough. A single cough cut through the 4 men's game. They turned their heads and spotted a robust young man standing by the entrance. He walked calmly up to the counter and tapped it gently. Xiao Sanzi, I'm here to apply for a loan. Hearing this, the scrawny young man calling himself Xiao Sanzi immediately grew irritable. He hopped up from the card table, strode over to Li Bing, and shouted aggressively. Damn it! How dare you address me by my given name? You should call me Third Master. As the scrawny youth lunged forward to grab Li Bing's collar, Li Bing's expression darkened. He swept his arm casually and sent the young man tumbling. Xiao Sanzi failed to dodge and crashed face first onto the floor. The other 3 burly men saw the trouble and jumped up from the table. Standing back to back, they surrounded Li Bing. Ha! Li Bing laughed out loud. Most people would be terrified out of their wits in such a situation, yet he remained utterly composed. Is this really necessary? Listen, gentlemen. I came here to secure a loan, not to fight. That young man spoke rudely to me just now. and he lost his balance and fell on his own. Are you going to hold that against me? Old Wolf, the bald man, noticed Li Bing carried an imposing aura. He hesitated to strike, speaking in a hostile tone instead. We can process loans, but what collateral do you have? You lot aren't qualified to negotiate with me. Get your boss Ma Sanbiao over here. Li Bing showed no fear facing the men. He walked straight across the lobby and settled onto a comfortable sofa. Damn, this guy's got quite the attitude. In all my years handling loans, I've never met anyone so cocky. Brothers, beat him up. After scrambling to his feet, the scrawny man's eyes turned vicious. Hold on. Old Wolf, the bald man, spoke up. He waved his hand to stop Xiao Sanzi. He was the leader among the four. Xiao Sanzi was hot-headed, and major decisions rested with him. Old Wolf let out a sly chuckle, and the fat on his cheeks jiggled. He walked over to stand before Li Bing, clasped his hands, and bowed slightly, a gesture out of underworld custom. May I ask which circle you run in, brother? I don't recognize you at all. I've never seen anyone like you around here. Old Wolf was questioning Li Bing using the unwritten rules of the underworld. Li Bing lit a cigarette unhurriedly and offered one to Old Wolf. Old Wolf accepted it and lit up as well. Li Bing took a slow drag. Brother Wolf, we live in a society governed by law these days. We're all just people trying to get by. There's no secret underworld circle. I'm just an ordinary man, no special connections. Old Wolf believed him to some extent. Judging by the young man's clothes, he didn't look like a gang member. He probably held a decent job. Oh, what kind of loan are you after? We offer a wide range of services here. Mortgage loans, unsecured credit loans, every option you can think of, and more. Which one do you want? Bring out whatever collateral you've got. Li Bing wasted no words. He pulled out 2 property deeds and held them up to the 4 men. Will these 2 suffice? When Old Wolf saw the genuine documents, his face instantly broke into a flattering smile. Hey brother, you should have said so sooner. Leave this matter to us. Old Wolf patted his chest confidently. Deals like this earned them generous commissions. I already told you, this is beyond your authority. I need a substantial loan, a minimum of 5 million. Fetch your boss Ma Sanbiao directly. Li Bing sounded impatient. He had wasted enough time negotiating with low-level lackeys, and his time was precious. What? 5 million as a starting amount? Xiao Sanzi scratched his ear, certain he had misheard. Brother Wolf, did I get that right? Even the seemingly steady Old Wolf gasped, nearly dropping his cigarette. They had processed countless loans before, but never one on such a massive scale. Most clients borrowed 100 or 200,000 at most. Even wealthy business owners rarely took out loans exceeding $1 million. This man wanted 5 million right off the bat. The matter was far beyond their scope. It explained why Li Bing had demanded to speak to Ma Sanbiao from the very start. After absorbing the news, Old Wolf instantly switched to an enthusiastic demeanor. He subtly signaled to the other men behind him. Xiao Sanzi, Xiao Lu, escort this gentleman to the private lounge at once. Serve him good tea and water. I'll call the boss immediately. Please wait a moment. Old Wolf beamed from ear to ear. Li Bing chuckled to himself. Wealth truly made a difference. The men who had been hostile toward him only moments ago were now rushing to pour tea and attend to his needs. Xiao Sanzi, in particular, treated him with marked deference whenever their eyes met. This way, sir, please. Li Bing followed Xiao Lu and Xiao Sanzi into an opulent private room. The space was lined with marble, covered in plush carpets, and furnished with high-brand sofas. It functioned as an exclusive reception area, clearly reserved only for valued clients. Li Bing casually sat down on a sofa. The room boasted excellent sound insulation, designed specifically for sensitive business negotiations. The 2 underlings waited on him, pouring drinks and serving a glass of fine red wine. Here you go, sir. This is our company's prized 1986 Lafite. Few privileged guests ever get to taste this vintage. Only someone of your standing qualifies. Li Bing did not hesitate. He lifted the glass and drained it in one go. He poured himself another sip and smacked his lips. This wine is indeed excellent. Li Bing waited quietly in the lounge. He was confident Ma Sanbiao would leap at such a huge deal. Only a fool would pass it up. Meanwhile, upon receiving the news, Ma Sanbiao hurried over without delay. 15 minutes later, the lounge door swung open with a bang. A stocky, heavily muscled man with short hair stepped inside. Instead of a formal suit, he wore a tight tank top. He exuded a fierce, unruly aura. A thick scar sliced across his cheek, making it obvious he was not someone to provoke. As soon as he entered, Ma Sanbiao laughed loudly and stepped forward to pull Li Bing into a warm embrace. After exchanging pleasantries, the 2 got down to business. Ma Sanbiao sent all the underlings outside, leaving only himself and Li Bing in the lounge. Ha ha, Old Wolf filled me in on everything. You're looking for a loan, brotherly. The moment I laid eyes on you, I felt an instant connection. It's fate that we've crossed paths. Ma Sanbiao laughed heartily, drained the tea on the table in one gulp, and carried himself without pretension, like an ordinary person. Li Bing responded with a faint smile. He knew exactly what Ma Sanbiao was thinking. This deal meant massive profits for the loan boss. Of course he would claim they clicked instantly. Li Bing chose not to point it out, speaking calmly. I feel the same way meeting you, Boss Ma. You are no ordinary man. To build such a business, you are truly exceptional. I'm in urgent need of liquid cash at the moment, which is why I've sought you out. I've heard your reputation for reliability, so I'm happy to strike a deal with you. Li Bing offered some praise first. He knew men like Ma valued respect and face. Ha ha, Brotherly is clearly a straightforward man. Very well, I won't beat around the bush. How much are you hoping to borrow? Li Bing took one final drag of his cigarette and stubbed it out. That depends on how much capital you can muster, Boss Ma. I wonder if you can handle such a large sum. A flicker of surprise crossed Ma Sanbiao's eyes. He had rarely met anyone with such bold confidence. He pulled out a pack of cigarettes, lit one for himself, and continued. That tells me you must have considerable assets of your own. Let's be clear. We can approve the loan, but you must provide sufficient collateral. Without adequate security, all your bold claims will amount to nothing. Li Bing let out a cold laugh. He pulled 2 property deeds and a vehicle registration certificate from his bag. Examine these first, Boss Ma. Then we can continue our discussion. Li Bing fell silent, lighting another cigarette and smoking slowly. Ma Sanbiao's expression turned serious as he flipped through the documents and property deeds. When he saw the deed valued at 10 million, he gasped in shock. The second deed belonged to a regular residential building worth roughly 1 million, plus a car valued at around 200,000. Altogether, the collateral exceeded 11 million. Ma Sanbiao stared in disbelief. His firm had never managed a loan of this scale. Even combining all his available liquid capital, he might not have enough to cover it. After a long pause, Ma Sanbiao spoke. That's quite the portfolio, Brotherly. His face remained heavy. He took a deep drag of his cigarette and exhaled, filling the room with smoke. A heavy silence settled over the lounge. Indeed, you run the largest private lending firm in this city. If you cannot take on this deal, I doubt anyone else in town can. Am I right, Boss Ma? Li Bing smiled and waited for Ma Sanbiao's decision. Ha ha, Brotherly speaks plainly. Very well, I will take this deal. But I have a few questions to ask first. Ma Sanbiao set all the documents down on the table and stared intently at Li Bing. Brotherly, I have reviewed all these papers and confirmed they are authentic. But one thing puzzles me. Why are you mortgaging your villa? And your residential property as well? I need a reasonable explanation. Otherwise, I cannot take on this risk. We stand to lose heavily if something goes wrong. Sigh, it's a long story. Li Bing sighed, feigning sorrow. Every trace of melancholy was carefully acted. This villa was purchased as a wedding home for my girlfriend. But her mother has fallen seriously ill with cancer, as you know. Treatment for such an illness is a bottomless pit. I need cash, vast amounts of cash. Rest assured, Boss Ma, I will find the funds to repay you. With my educational background, earning this sum is not difficult. I only need temporary liquidity right now. Once I get through these tough months, I intend to redeem my properties. No one would willingly give up their home and future family, wouldn't you agree? Ma Sanbiao watched Li Bing's convincing display, the young man's voice trembling with apparent emotion. He believed Li Bing's story. Ma Sanbiao stroked his chin and spoke in a grave tone. Brotherly, how much do you want to borrow? I need 9 million in cash. The remaining 1.2 million can serve as your interest. That seems fair enough, Boss Ma. Besides, you've earned a substantial profit recently. Shock flashed across Ma Sanbiao's face. He had indeed made a large windfall lately. But how did this stranger know? They barely knew each other. Had Li Bing gotten insider information? Or had Ma Sanbiao's business dealings attracted unwanted attention? Doubt churned inside him. He had recently purchased multiple properties and resold them for massive gains. No one else, not even his own underlings at the loan firm, knew about this venture. Li Bing knew the truth. He knew the abilities of every reborn person. Ma Sanbiao's power was wealth attraction. No wonder money had flowed effortlessly toward him recently. Li Bing planned to seize this opportunity to obtain a large sum of cash. Ma Sanbiao was the only person holding such massive liquid funds. Ma Sanbiao pondered for a while before answering. I can hold on to these documents, but I cannot give you 9 million in cash. These assets carry too much value. If the investment goes wrong, I stand to lose millions. The maximum I can offer is 8 million. I will bear all losses if the deal sours. If the assets appreciate, the 2 million difference will count as interest. Those are my terms. You won't find anyone else in this city with this much available cash. What do you say, brotherly? Li Bing smiled. Boss Ma, you've made great profits lately. Throw your underlings a small share of the gains. I'm truly in a bind right now. Let's compromise. Give me 8.5 million. When I repay the loan, I will pay an extra 500,000 on top. This extra 500,000 will be treated as a separate personal loan from you to me. No matter whether your investment succeeds or fails, this additional sum is my personal obligation. How does that sound? Ma Sanbiao let out a hearty laugh. Excellent. Brotherly is truly reasonable. I accept your offer. I won't demand that extra 500,000. Consider it a personal gesture on my part, separate from interest. Wonderful. Boss Ma is a decisive man. It's settled. Both men stood up and shook hands firmly. Li Bing noticed the sharp glint of calculation in Ma Sanbiao's eyes. For all his rough, easygoing exterior, the gang leader was observant and far shrewder than most businessmen. If the properties were formally mortgaged, they could secure well over 9 million. Li Bing had agreed to accept only 8.5 million. Ultimately, Li Bing was taking the lesser deal. But it did not matter. The apocalypse would arrive in 1 month. Repayment would never happen. Even if repayment were required, Lin Shui would be liable. The property deeds were registered under her name. Li Bing himself had no legal obligation whatsoever. A cold smirk tugged at his lips as he quickly signed the contract. Once the paperwork was finalized, 8.5 million cash was transferred into Li Bing's bank account. Li Bing suspected this transaction had drained nearly all of Ma Sanbiao's liquid reserves. Still, thanks to his wealth-attracting ability, Ma Sanbiao would earn a similar fortune within another month. By then, the world would end, and all that money would be worthless paper. Escorted by Ma Sanbiao and his 4 underlings, Li Bing drove out of the loan firm's premises. Glancing at the over 8.5 million in his bank account, he felt a strong sense of security. When he arrived home, Li Bing exhaled deeply. The first step of his plan was complete. He smiled coldly. Lin Shui had no idea she was now burdened with a multi-million-dollar loan. With 8.5 million at his disposal, Li Bing felt thoroughly satisfied. This capital would become his greatest foundation for surviving the apocalypse. With this money, he could purchase massive stockpiles of supplies. The foolish woman Lin Shui was probably still convinced he was making sincere sacrifices for her sake. Li Bing stood by the window, gazing out at the bustling streets and neon lights of the city. He sank into thought. He now possessed ample funds, yet he lacked a supernatural ability. His top priority was figuring out how to seize Lin Shui's spatial ability. Li Bing remained silent on the balcony for a long time before releasing a long breath. I will set aside that problem for now. This funding is enough to purchase a large batch of supplies. This is merely the first phase. With money in hand, Li Bing no longer needed to tread cautiously. He drove his luxury car straight to a supermarket. He began buying supplies in staggering quantities. Fresh steak, lamb chops, pork, fish, all varieties of hot pot ingredients, mineral water. He purchased everything that caught his eye without hesitation. He bought 10 times the usual amount, nearly clearing out the supermarket's inventory. The shop assistants stared at him in stunned disbelief. Li Bing hired a cargo truck to transport all the supplies back to his villa. Once home, he inventoried his stock: 1,000 frozen steaks, 1,000 frozen lamb chops, 100 barrels of peanut oil, 1,000 cases of mineral water, 5 tons of rice and flour, 1 ton of dehydrated preserved vegetables. After tallying everything, Li Bing frowned. All these supplies had only cost roughly 200,000. The expense was trivial, yet one issue troubled him greatly. He could only store all goods inside the villa. This was a refined 3-story villa with a small underground storage room. The 200-square-meter basement was already packed to capacity with supplies, leaving no extra room. This constraint darkened Li Bing's mood. The disadvantage of lacking a spatial ability is plain to see. I can only rely on underground storage, which is far insufficient to sustain me for multiple years. Furthermore, frozen steaks and lamb chops require refrigeration and cannot be preserved indefinitely. Li Bing paced back and forth inside the basement, his brows tightly knit. He patted the stacks of frozen meat. I have to find a way to take Lin Shui's spatial power. Otherwise, frozen meat, fish balls, and other perishables will spoil within days. I also need to build dedicated power generation equipment underground. Once the apocalypse hits, sunlight will vanish, and all operations will rely on energy sources. Power will be a critical resource. First, I will expand the basement into a vast storage facility. I plan to divide the space into 8 functional zones. The surrounding 1-kilometer radius feels a little cramped. No matter. I will construct 3 underground levels. According to Li Bing's plan, he intended to fully construct everything 1 kilometer beneath the villa. The lowest level would serve as the energy layer, the level above it the power generation layer. The first underground level would be his storage space. With this thought, Li Bing resolved to get to work at once. Li Bing suspected that the infinite storage space could hold all manner of food, yet it might not be able to accommodate large mechanical equipment. This possibility needed verification. If the storage space could not contain such machinery, it would create serious trouble. So he prepared for the worst-case scenario. Li Bing made a phone call and summoned the city's top construction crew. The crew foreman was a middle-aged man covered in pock masks. Though he appeared ordinary on the surface, Li Bing dared not underestimate him. He commanded more than a dozen men. Quiet and reserved by nature, he was renowned for meticulous workmanship. Li Bing roughly laid out his vision. After listening, the pockmarked foreman did not turn him down. Instead, he spoke fluent Sichuan dialect. "Boss, you know how tough our construction crew has it. More than a dozen men on my team rely on me for their livelihoods. Besides, this project is massive. If we're to finish it for you, it'll cost at least this much." Li Bing smoothly pulled out a cigarette and handed it to the crew lead, whose name was Rong Ji. "Brother Rong, I know everyone struggles. You understand the plan already. Just tell me how long completion will take. If you can wrap everything up within half a month, money won't be an issue." Li Bing smiled as he spoke to Rong Ji. "Well now, Boss Li, you can call me Lao Rong. I've worked construction for 20 years. I've seen every kind of project under the sun. This job itself isn't overly difficult, but..." Lao Rong took a drag from his cigarette. His dark, pockmarked face turned toward the villa, his words trailing off. "I need to discuss this with my crew. The project size is considerable, and your timeline is very tight." After deliberating with his workers, Lao Rong quoted Li Bing a price of 1.5 million. Li Bing agreed without hesitation and added another 500,000 on the sole condition that construction be finished within 10 days. When Lao Rong heard this offer, he broke into a wide grin. The other laborers beside him were equally delighted. Given sufficient pay, they could finish the work even within 7 days. Motivated by the generous payment, the crew started work that very day. They began excavating the foundation and expanding the underground storage chambers into 3 separate levels. Everything was built strictly to Li Bing's specifications, with 8 designated zones on each floor. Construction hummed with activity around the villa. Li Bing watched the bustling worksite and smiled faintly. He knew Lao Rong had quoted a higher price than necessary. Li Bing was well aware that the market rate for this work would top out at roughly 1.2 million. The asking price was inflated, but money meant the least to him right now. A higher bid was irrelevant. As long as the crew delivered on schedule, that was his greatest guarantee. Li Bing tossed away his cigarette, but stamped it out and turned to leave. Next, he planned to head back to the university. He had unresolved questions he hoped to pose to his supervisor, a leading expert in this field. He arrived on campus seeking answers about the events that triggered the apocalypse. In his view, the apocalypse of his past life could not have happened without a root cause. An experiment involving dark matter spatial folding alone could not have extinguished the sun. There had to be other contributing factors. Only his supervisor possessed the knowledge to unravel these mysteries. The university campus was lined with lush greenery, ancient towering trees neatly arranged along the roads. The pavements were clean. Groups of uniformed college students wandered past, textbooks in hand, heading to classrooms. On the lawns nearby, young women sat quietly studying. From a distance, the scene resembled a beautiful painting. The sight stirred emotion within Li Bing. Few places could rival the beauty of a campus. Yet his mind was elsewhere. Li Bing hurried toward his supervisor's office building, but before he climbed the stairs, he ran into Wang Han. 2 female students surrounded him. One was his new girlfriend, tall and striking. Behind them stood familiar faces, Qin Tong, and beside her, Lin Shui. It seemed Qin Tong had made up her mind to win Wang Han back. Word had spread all across campus that Wang Han was an ability user. Many young women hoped to get close to him. Wang Han had suddenly become a campus celebrity. His ability granted him immense strength. He could lift weights of 200 jin with one hand, possessing power comparable to a wild ox. Rumors said he had even been recruited by the provincial athletics team, bringing him widespread fame. "Wang Han, why are you with her? Haven't I treated you well?" Qin Tong stood there looking miserable, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Qin Tong, stop pestering me. We simply aren't compatible. You know I'm a well-known figure around campus now. You're not a match for me." Wang Han was lean of build, yet his ability filled him with incredible strength. His new girlfriend, Luo Yu, was a music department student, stunningly beautiful and widely regarded as the department's beauty. No one expected Wang Han to win her heart. "You is my true love." Admiration shone in Wang Han's eyes. and he kissed Luo Yu openly in front of everyone. Luo Yu did not pull away. Instead, she sneered. Do you really think you stand a chance with Wang Han? Know your place. You're plain and unimpressive. You aren't worthy of him. Qin Tong's face flushed red. She could not find words to reply, tears spilling continuously. How can you act like this? Qin Tong dated you for a whole year. How can you be so heartless? Wang Han, you're terrible. You only care about what benefits you. Karma will find you. Lin Shui planted her hands on her hips, angrily berating Wang Han. That's right. Don't think your ability makes you untouchable. Lin Shui also has powers. Yours don't amount to much. Qin Tong gathered her courage and spoke up. Who do you think you are? Daring to challenge me over abilities? Want to test my fist? Wang Han grew enraged. He raised his fist, ready to strike Qin Tong. At that moment, Li Bing walked over. When Lin Shui spotted Li Bing, she looked as though she had found a savior. Binggu, please judge this fairly. Wang Han is being unreasonable. We only wanted an explanation, yet he tries to bully us. Make him pay for this. Lin Shui dragged Li Bing before the group. Disgust flickered across Li Bing's face, though he held back his anger. He stared silently with a solemn expression. Truth be told, this was none of his business. He had no desire to get involved. He had only intended to watch from the sidelines. But Lin Shui's next words nearly ignited his fury. Wang Han, you're in deep trouble. Let me tell you, Li Bing is someone you cannot afford to provoke. Even with your ability, you're no match for Binggu. Lin Shui's comment deliberately stoked conflict between Li Bing and Wang Han. This woman was trying to drag him into her dispute to shift trouble onto him. Li Bing's expression darkened. Provoked, Wang Han glared at Li Bing, rolling his shoulders until joints popped. Li Bing was merely an ordinary human. Fighting a strength-type ability user would be suicide. Lin Shui was truly malicious. Exactly. Li Bing, Wang Han is awful. Beat him. He's fickle and untrustworthy. People like him don't deserve kindness. Qin Tong urged Li Bing angrily, hoping he would fight for her. Li Bing shot Qin Tong a cold stare. Only yesterday, Qin Tong had mocked and belittled him. Now she expected him to fight her battles. Did she forget her own words? How could she bring herself to ask such a thing? Sorry, I won't get involved in this. I need to return to my laboratory for research. Li Bing replied coldly, then turned to leave. Lin Shui froze on hearing this. Li Bing was nothing like he had been the past few days. Only yesterday, he had doted on her endlessly, speaking sweetly, and even promising to buy her a house. Now he acted like a completely different person. In the past, whenever she asked Li Bing to do something, he would comply without hesitation. She could not believe he would ignore her request today. Furious, Lin Shui rushed forward and blocked his path. Li Bing, what's wrong with you? Don't you love me anymore? Is it really too much to ask you to help Qin Tong? Are you even a man? I will never agree to marry you if you act like this. Lin Shui glared fiercely, demanding an explanation. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Last night I spoke to my parents about our marriage plans, and they do not approve. We can forget about marriage. Here is your ID card. I plan to look for another partner from now on. Li Bing answered flatly, pushed Lin Shui aside, and strode toward his laboratory. What? Lin Shui stood stunned. Li Bing had never intended to marry her. She had stayed awake all night in excitement after their conversation yesterday. The sudden reversal left her unable to process what had happened. Li Bing, you monster. How dare you deceive me? Lin Shui trembled where she stood, her knuckles whitening as she clenched her fists. In her mind, Li Bing was a man who catered to her every wish, someone she could control. His refusal left her utterly lost. Watching the scene unfold, Wang Han laughed loudly. He wrapped an arm around Luo Yu and headed toward the teaching buildings. Come on, you. I'll treat you to a feast today. When Li Bing reached his laboratory, his supervisor was nowhere to be found. He slapped his forehead in frustration. He had forgotten. His supervisor was abroad on a business trip and would not return for several days. There was no way for him to contact the professor right now. His trip to campus had been for nothing. Li Bing sat down at his workstation. Looking at the familiar computers and large research equipment around him, he sighed. Though the campus felt safe and peaceful, once the apocalypse arrived, it would descend into greater chaos than the outside world. Li Bing recalled that after the apocalypse, students formed numerous factions in a fight for survival, controlling the entire campus. Unfortunately, Li Bing had stayed at home back then and never witnessed the chaos on campus. Li Bing turned on his computer and began searching for his supervisor's research documents. These internal files could only be accessed within the laboratory. Just then, a young man in a white lab coat and safety goggles walked over. Well, Li Bing, you're certainly dedicated. It's only the second day of break, and you're already in the lab working. Unlike me, I'm scrambling to finish graduation work even during the holidays. This was Li Bing's senior fellow student, Wei Ying. Wei Ying opened a cabinet and pulled out a thick stack of documents. He dumped the pile onto Li Bing's desk without hesitation. The stack reached nearly waist height. Junior Li Bing, these materials were assigned by our supervisor. I can't possibly finish all of them, so I'll pass them on to you. Try to get them completed for me today. I'll treat you to dinner tonight for your trouble. Wei Ying smiled and turned to leave. Li Bing's expression turned cold. On the surface, Senior Wei acted amiable, yet he frequently pressured younger students to complete his work. These documents were not assigned by the professor at all. They were materials Wei Ying needed to submit for his graduation thesis. Still, he pretended the work came from their supervisor. Li Bing stood and grabbed hold of Wei Ying. Senior Wei, these are your graduation documents. They cannot possibly be tasks assigned to the rest of us. Isn't that right? This work has nothing to do with me. Li Bing spoke slowly, his tone sharp yet calm. Oh, my mistake. I misread things. These are indeed my graduation materials. Embarrassment washed over Wei Ying, humiliated to be exposed outright. The supervisor only assigned you a simple design task. He pulled a thin set of documents from another desk and handed them to Li Bing. Li Bing recognized this as the genuine work his supervisor had tasked him with. He let out a cold laugh. Confronting people like Wei required calling out their hypocrisy directly. Li Bing continued searching through the archives for a while longer before leaving, disappointed. None of the files contained research regarding spatial folding. Li Bing got into his car and prepared to head home. As he walked through the parking lot, he noticed several men blocking the path. Li Bing stepped closer and frowned. It was Lin Shue's younger brother, Lin Jianma. Lin Jianma was only a sophomore, yet he possessed a heavily muscular build. Rumors said he bullied others freely on campus, acting as the tyrant of his grade. He stepped straight toward Li Bing without a word. Nearly 2 meters tall, he loomed like an iron tower. Anyone facing him would feel intimidated. 2 followers stood behind him, looking hostile, forming a circle to block Li Bing's escape. Lin Shui and Qin Tong stood quietly further back, watching coldly. Lin Jianma grabbed Li Bing's collar roughly. He nearly lifted Li Bing off the ground. Li Bing struggled, unable to break free. Li Bing, I heard you upset my sister. Is that true? Do you believe I can send you straight to hospital with one punch? Lin Jianma's expression was vicious, seeking to overwhelm Li Bing with aggression. Li Bing gasped for air. He managed to shrug Lin Jianma off. Though his face showed strain, he remained composed. In this situation, strategy mattered far more than brute force. He was outnumbered. Starting a fight would only leave him injured. Lin Jianma, let's talk this through calmly. There's no need for such hostility. Besides, when did I ever mistreat your sister? Li Bing adjusted his shirt collar and quickly gathered his words. Li Bing, you're awful. You refused to stand up for me earlier, and that counts as hurting me. Lin Shui glared furiously at Li Bing. Exactly. You watched Wang Han bully Lin Shui and stood by doing nothing. You aren't a dependable man. What good is someone like you? Lin Shui cared for you deeply. Qin Tong joined in, her tone sharp. You were the one who stirred up all this trouble. How dare you speak? At the very least, I have more dignity than you. You were dumped by Wang Han, begged for reconciliation, and were rejected a second time. Li Bing retorted bluntly. You brute. I'll attack you. Qin Tong flew into a rage. She lunged toward Li Bing, arms flailing, ready to fight him. But Lin Shui held her back tightly. Enough, Qin Tong. Stop acting recklessly. Lin Shui restrained her, irritation also rising within her. Sis, what do you want me to do? Beat him up? Land him in hospital? Break one of his legs? I'll get revenge for you. Lin Jianma clenched his fists, ready to strike at any moment. Xiao Mo, step aside. I have a few things I want to ask him. Lin Shui walked gracefully toward Li Bing. Her expression softened, and she brushed strands of hair away from her face. She lifted her head and looked at Li Bing earnestly. Li Bing, tell me honestly, do you still love me? Li Bing thought to himself. Was she resorting to her usual manipulative tactics again? His face remained blank as he sneered inwardly. If he did not know Lin Shui so well, he might have fallen for her act. Li Bing stayed silent. Lin Shui ignored his lack of response. If you still love me, you must marry me. Is the villa you bought yesterday real? I saw my name on the property deed. Does that mean you still have feelings for me? Li Bing thought cynically. Ultimately, she cared only about the property deed and the villa. Her true motives had surfaced at last. Li Bing smiled faintly. Lin Shui, I admit I spoke harshly to you today, but I was in a rush. I did buy a villa yesterday, and your name is indeed listed on the deed. However, my parents disapprove of our marriage, so we should let this go. Are you serious? Lin Shui gasped, excitement flaring across her face. I accept. I'm willing to marry you. Who'd want to marry you? How delusional can you be? Frankly, I might not even take a fancy to you. Li Bing rolled his eyes inwardly, but remained silent on the surface. Sis, you can't agree without settling the betrothal gift first. Li Bing's the lucky one here, getting to marry someone as wonderful and beautiful as you. He has to pay at least 2 million as betrothal money to wed you. Lin Jianma scratched his head, releasing the grip on Li Bing's hand, and added with a grin. Not enough. Our Lin Shui is so stunning. The minimum should be 3 million. Qin Tong huffed in agreement. Li Bing sighed. How could these people be so self-absorbed? When did I ever say I wanted to marry her? It was never about marriage. They just want my money. Greedy leeches. They see me as an easy target to swindle. But for now, the odds were stacked against him. Shuer, I truly care about you, but my parents disapprove. As for the property deed, it's in my possession right now. I'm actually preparing to have the ownership changed. Lin Shui's eyes lit up the second she heard this. No, don't do that. Hand the deed over to me, and I'll marry you. Sis, this guy isn't much to look at. If you don't like him, just seize the deed directly. The title's already under your name anyway. Why bother marrying him? He doesn't deserve to be my brother-in-law. The betrothal gift still can't be less than 3 million. Lin Jianma spoke his unfiltered thoughts without hesitation. What you're planning is illegal. Li Bing shouted, feigning rage. Haha, illegal? What law are we breaking? The deed carries my sister's name, so the house belongs to her. How can that be unlawful? Hand over the deed while you still can, or my fists won't show you any mercy. Lin Jianma shook his fist threateningly right in front of Li Bing. Lin Shui stayed quiet, a strange glint flickering in her eyes. Her brother's words had planted an idea in her mind. Truth be told, she had never loved Li Bing. She only treated him as someone who would readily cater to her needs. So she pretended to date him. She never let him get close to her, merely using him to run errands. She never imagined Li Bing would actually buy a house under her name yesterday. Her heart raced. If what Lin Jianma said was true, and she could take possession of the deed, the house would be fully hers, completely separate from Li Bing. A greedy look surfaced on her face as the thought sank in. Originally, she planned to marry Li Bing to obtain the property, but now she saw a better shortcut. She no longer cared to keep up the pretense. Money was exactly what she needed most. With this house, she could either live in it or sell it for cash. Funds would let her stockpile massive supplies inside her supernatural storage space. Moreover, if she upgraded the space, it could hold even more goods. When the apocalypse arrived, she would have a huge advantage, capable of surviving comfortably through the disaster. A subtle smile tugged at Lin Shui's lips. Brother, you're far sharper. Find a way to make Li Bing hand over the deed. Haha, naturally. I'm quite popular on campus, after all. As he spoke, two of his companions stepped forward, pinning Li Bing's shoulders on either side. Lin Jianma marched over, seized Li Bing, and held him immobile. He snarled, You heard what my sister said. If you know what's good for you, hand over the deed immediately. Otherwise, I'll break both your legs and leave you crippled. If you lay a single finger on me, I'll make sure you never lay eyes on that deed again. You're desperate for money, and I have plenty of it. What's more, I've hidden the deed somewhere none of you could ever guess. Try hurting me and see what happens. A dark look crossed Li Bing's face. Though restrained, his tone remained firm as he stared straight at Lin Shui. You think I won't hurt you, seniorly? Lin Jianma bared his teeth, his expression vicious. He tightened his grip further. Li Bing's collar was squeezed tight by Lin Jianma, cutting off his airflow. His face flushed, turning purple as he struggled to breathe, yet his gaze never left Lin Shui. Whoa, Li Bing's face is turning purple. Are you trying to kill him? Let go, stop this right now. Qin Tong spotted Li Bing's worsening condition first. She hurriedly pushed Lin Jianma. She wasn't afraid Li Bing would die out of sympathy, only fearful of the consequences if a murder occurred. Lin Shui also realized the danger. If this went too far, someone could end up dead. Brother, let him go. Lin Shui paused for a moment before stepping forward to intervene. Li Bing was right. The deed remained in his hands. Even with her name on the certificate, she could not claim it without his cooperation. Lin Jianmo reluctantly released his hold. Li Bing collapsed onto the ground, gasping for air and coughing repeatedly. A red mark circled his neck from the strangling grip. Lin Jianma's actions had nearly killed him on the spot. It took Li Bing a long while to recover. Lin Shui knelt down beside him. She pulled out a tissue and gently wiped the corner of his mouth. Bingo, I'm so sorry. My brother acted recklessly. He shouldn't have treated you like this. All of you wait outside. I need to speak to Li Bing alone. She shot a sharp, warning glance at Lin Jianma. Sis, I didn't mean it. How was I supposed to know he can't take a little rough handling? Lin Jianma scratched his head awkwardly and left with his two companions. Qin Tong also tactfully withdrew. Only Lin Shui and Li Bing remained. Once Li Bing recovered enough, she helped him stand, and the two settled inside the BMW. Li Bing lit a cigarette. Lin Shui frowned. She disliked the smell of smoke, but held back her irritation. Lin Shui, what do you want to say? I've made my position clear. What happened yesterday was a misunderstanding. We have no ties anymore, and I don't have feelings for you. I will apply to change the ownership on the property deed within the next few days. Li Bing regarded her with a hostile expression. Bingo, I know you're smart. You didn't buy that villa yesterday for me, did you? You were after my supernatural storage space. Let's drop the pretenses and speak frankly. Lin Shui leaned closer to Li Bing. Lin Shui was naturally beautiful, and she had dressed carefully today. Her hair was half-tied, with a few strands falling beside her ears. She had delicate oval features and smooth, flawless skin. Her eyes locked onto Li Bing with intent focus. She carried a captivating aura that few men could ignore. Even Li Bing felt his heartbeat quicken under her gaze. He quickly drank some water to calm his stirring emotions. This woman certainly knew how to manipulate others with her charm. What exactly are you aiming for? Li Bing swallowed and stared directly at her, his eyes filled with vigilance. Lin Shui giggled softly behind her hand. You're my boyfriend, after all. Why so wary of me? Seeing Li Bing remain guarded, she relaxed against the seat, settling into a comfortable posture. Li Bing, you're a smart man. There's no need to beat around the bush. I'll be honest. I need a large sum of money, which is why I covet the house registered under my name. Li Bing burst out laughing, almost hysterically. Do you find what I said amusing? Lin Shui's voice sharpened, her chest rising and falling with frustration. All this talk, yet you simply crave my wealth. No need to pretend you're above greed. Li Bing's tone was low. Don't think I don't see through you. You're equally desperate to get your hands on my storage space. Am I wrong? Are you any more honorable than me? Lin Shui turned to stare out the window, disdain flickering across her face. You're correct. I do have plans regarding your supernatural storage space. Li Bing admitted without hesitation. Cut the act. I know exactly what you're scheming. You hope to rely on my storage space to survive the coming apocalypse. But the space belongs to me. You can only rely on my goodwill. There is no room for negotiation. Lin Shui laid out her terms. In her view, Li Bing was merely an ordinary human without awakened powers. He must have learned of the impending apocalypse through some source. To survive the disaster, he wanted to form a connection with her. He was planning to use her storage space to endure the end times. It was a clever scheme, yet the power belonged solely to her. Very well, Lin Shui. You're sharp, so I won't hide anything further. It's true that I am an ordinary person. Surviving the apocalypse alone will be extremely difficult. I've heard you possess a storage space ability. If you're willing to share it and cooperate with me, we can work together. Li Bing spoke seriously, his gaze fixed firmly on her. The storage space is mine. You're just a regular human. What do you have to offer for a partnership? Lin Shui scoffed. I have money. Li Bing raised his voice, countering forcefully. He took another deep drag from his cigarette and exhaled slowly before continuing. You have the storage space, but no funds to stockpile supplies. I have abundant capital. If you agree, we can live comfortably through the apocalypse together. What do you say? Lin Shui's expression darkened after hearing this. She indeed had no savings at the moment. The few thousand worth of supplies she owned would only let her survive a short while. It was nowhere near enough to endure the long-term apocalypse. No one knew how long the crisis would last, and more supplies meant greater security. What kind of partnership are you proposing? Lin Shui's confidence wavered as she pressed for details. It's simple. You provide the storage space, and I provide all the supplies. However, I will not hand over the house to you. Since the space is yours, you could easily withhold supplies from me later, leaving me helpless. That's why I previously suggested marriage. If we were wed, our fates would be tied together. Neither of us could betray the other. That plan has fallen through, though. Li Bing explained the whole sequence calmly. You truly are cunning. I suspected you had a plan, but I didn't realize you'd thought everything through this deeply. Lin Shui eyed him warily, unease rising inside her. I also know about your involvement with other men. I don't intend to bring it up. We both only want to survive. So there's no need to turn against each other. This will purely be a working partnership. Agreed. Lin Shui paled. She thought Li Bing knew nothing about her other relationships. She was embarrassed, wishing she could vanish on the spot. She imagined Li Bing viewed her as deeply manipulative. Even so, she remained proud. She would not change who she was just to satisfy Li Bing's opinion of her. I agree to cooperate, but my storage space is only 10 square meters large. Lin Shui thought carefully before revealing the limitation of her ability. Li Bing sneered inwardly. He already knew the space was only 10 square meters, but he feigned surprise. 10 square meters? Are you joking? How much stock can that hold? It's smaller than my underground warehouse. Forget this partnership, then. I've wasted enough time. I can survive the apocalypse perfectly well without you. Please get out of the car. I'm heading back. Li Bing rolled down the window and opened the passenger door, gesturing for her. Lin Shui sat rigidly in place, her face drained of color. Li Bing was right. With his intelligence, he could find ways to survive for a decent stretch once the apocalypse arrived. But without supplies and only her storage space, she would not last long. I haven't finished speaking. I can upgrade the space. Lin Shui blurted out quickly, eager to prove her value. Oh, why hold that back until now? But upgrading such abilities always comes with drawbacks, doesn't it? Li Bing knew all supernatural powers carried costs, curious what price she would pay. You're right. Upgrading the space consumes my lifespan. I value my life too much to sacrifice years of it carelessly. Lin Shui slumped back, looking defeated. She had lost. Upgrading the storage space is possible. If we form this partnership, I'm willing to pay the lifespan cost to expand it. But all supplies must remain stored within my space. A sly smile crossed Li Bing's mind, yet he kept his expression neutral as he replied, It's a deal. If you agree to help upgrade, I need confirmation of supplies. Lin Shui asked uncertainly. 3 million worth. Will that suffice? Li Bing said casually. What? 3 million? Lin Shui's eyes widened in disbelief. She guessed Li Bing could scrape together at most 1 million worth of supplies. It was enough to survive 7 or 8 years. She never expected him to commit 3 million. With that stockpile, they could endure 10, 20, even 30 years of disaster. Does this condition satisfy you? Yes, absolutely. Lin Shui's voice trembled with excitement. Good. I've laid out my terms. Now show me your sincerity. Li Bing smiled faintly, his gaze locked onto her. No. I need to see supplies first. You have to hand over a portion. Though at a disadvantage, Lin Shui was not foolish. Promises meant nothing. If Li Bing was simply deceiving her, she would lose everything. To be safe, she demanded proof. Li Bing sneered inwardly. He expected her to distrust him. She was far too calculating to agree blindly. Still, he had prepared for this, stocking roughly 300,000. I see you still don't trust me. That's fine. You'll see for yourself soon enough. Let's go. Fasten your seatbelt. We're heading to the villa. Li Bing drove off. Neither spoke during the half-hour drive. Eventually, Li Bing pulled up outside the 3-story hillside villa. The surroundings were scenic, with wide paved roads. Mist curled around the building perched halfway up the mountain, offering an unobstructed view. Sunset light bathed the villa in warm golden glow as dusk fell across Donglu City. After parking in the underground garage, Li Bing led Lin Shui to the underground storage room. He gestured toward mountains of supplies. This holds roughly 300,000 worth. Li Bing walked to a freezer and pulled out fresh steak and lamb chops. These cuts can stay fresh normally. Once power fails, all this food will spoil quickly. Only your space preserves goods. You can move all these supplies into your space right now. Consider this my first gesture. Lin Shui stared at the massive stockpile, dozens of tons of goods spread out. Excitement surged through her. She now believed every word Li Bing said. Very well. I trust you. Lin Shui's heart raced. If she moved all these supplies into her storage space, she could survive alone for 7 or 8 years without relying on Li Bing. These goods were worth hundreds of thousands, featuring rice, flour, bottled water, and meats. The more she looked, the more thrilled she became. A new thought crossed her mind. Once she stored all these goods, she could vanish without a trace to exact her revenge. All right, I'll upgrade my storage space immediately. Lin Shui said eagerly. She waved her hand, and a translucent panel appeared in front of her, displaying her ability. Awakened. Lin Shui awakened ability. Spatial ability, 10 square meters. Do you wish to upgrade the space? Li Bing could also see it. Upgrade. Lin Shui said firmly. Upgrading the space requires consuming 10 years of your lifespan. Does the host agree? A mechanical voice resounded before the two once more. What? 10 years of lifespan. Lin Shui paled instantly and stumbled backward several steps. She was only 18 now, yet the upgrade demanded a decade, turning her into 28 years old. How many years of lifespan does it take? 10 years of the host's lifespan will expand the spatial ability to 100 square meters. Did you not know that upgrading comes with a cost? I knew, but normally each use only deducts 1 day of lifespan, not 10 whole years. This is far too outrageous. Lin Shui mumbled in disbelief. Lin Shui, make up your mind quickly. Are you upgrading or not? If you keep dawdling, our agreement will be void. Li Bing showed no mercy, urging her impatiently. I'll upgrade it. I choose to upgrade. Lin Shui gritted her teeth, speaking loudly at once. Host confirms upgrade. A flash of white light swept over her instantly. Awakened. Lin Shui awakened ability. Spatial ability, 100 square meters. Right after, Lin Shui's appearance shifted, fading from 18 to 28 years old. Fine wrinkles appeared at the corners of her eyes, and her skin grew slightly looser. The youthful aura of a college student vanished completely, replaced by mature grace. Even Li Bing swallowed hard as he watched. Man, she looks far more poised and captivating now. Still, Li Bing had no time to study her closely as his panel flickered. Awakened. Lin Shui, spatial ability, 100 square meters. Seize it. Reward for seizure, 10,000 times return. Li Bing stared at the flickering text and voice echoes. Seize the space. Seize the space? What do you mean, seize the space? Lin Shui froze, lifting her gaze. Li Bing wore a sly smile. It means I'm taking your spatial ability. No, you cannot. Another burst of white light flashed, and Lin Shui collapsed into unconsciousness. A stream of white light flooded Li Bing's mind, possessing 1 million square meters. Congratulations to the host for activating the 10,000 times return system. Current seized spatial ability range, 1 million square meters. Ability rating, Grade C. Unlimited storage of non-living supplies. Li Bing's head throbbed dully. Seizing the spatial ability took a toll on him. However, his discomfort was negligible compared to what Lin Shui endured. Li Bing tested his new power. With a simple wave of his hand, he moved all the supplies into the spatial space. Tens of tons of goods settled quietly within it. Fresh steaks, lamb chops, fruits and vegetables stored inside would never spoil or rot. So this is what possessing a spatial ability feels like. It's incredible, haha. Li Bing laughed where he stood. In truth, every step had been his plan. He had long known he could only seize Lin Shui's spatial power once she unlocked and upgraded it. He would not have resorted to such drastic measures if Lin Jinma and Lin Shui had not pushed him to the brink today. Now he had seized her spatial ability while she upgraded it, and thanks to the 10,000 times return effect, he now commanded 1 million square meter space. With this spatial ability, I'll never need to worry about supplies once the apocalypse arrives. After several tests, Li Bing quickly mastered how to use the space. He could move any goods inside with a mere thought, no physical action required. Living creatures were the sole exception. The volume he could shift at once depended on his mental strength. At present, he could transport several hundred tons in one go, which was more than enough for his needs. Attempting to move more would leave him dizzy and could even knock him unconscious. Half an hour later, Lin Shui slowly regained consciousness. Li Bing sat on a lounge chair not far away, casually scrolling through novels on his phone, looking utterly relaxed. You're awake, Lin Shui. How do you feel? Li Bing, you bastard. I'll kill you. Lin Shui tried to stand, but her limbs felt heavy and weak. Her legs buckled, and she fell back down. Her face was ashen, bloodshot filling her eyes. She looked as though she had lost massive amounts of blood, drained of all vitality, too weak even to stand upright. This was the consequence of having her spatial ability stripped away. Lin Shui attempted to call upon her spatial power, yet nothing responded. The realization shattered her. Li Bing, what have you done to me? Lin Shui asked him through tears. Lin Shui, haven't you noticed? Can't you feel that something's missing? My spatial ability. Lin Shui let out a raw scream, ready to throw herself at Li Bing. She could no longer sense her space at all. It meant Li Bing had deceived her from the start and stolen her power. Despair crashed over her. She had sacrificed 10 years of her lifespan, only to end up with no spatial ability left. Anyone in her position would break down. She was only 18 years old. Li Bing, why treat me like this? We had an agreement. Why break your word? I hate you more than anything. Lin Shui struggled to prop herself up, looking like a wilted flower, her heart completely broken. Inside the empty basement, only the sound of her quiet weeping lingered. Lin Shui stared at Li Bing with tear-filled eyes filled with hatred. Li Bing could never stand seeing women cry, and he spoke sharply. Lin Shui, have you finished crying? If you have, get out of here. Lin Shui ignored him, continuing to glare venomously. Suddenly, she let out wild laughter. She lunged toward Li Bing like a madwoman. Li Bing showed her no mercy. He pushed her hard, and she crashed to the ground once more. Her makeup streaked from tears, her features looking more haggard than ever. With messy hair, she sat alternating between crying and laughing, looking deranged, while Li Bing stood silent before her. Why did you lie to me? Why steal my spatial ability? Why do this to me? Lin Shui sobbed brokenly. Did you not force me into this, Lin Shui? Li Bing's expression turned cold. Do you know how well I treated you before? And how did you repay me? You ignored me and treated me like someone desperate for your attention. Do you know who killed me in my past life? Li Bing grabbed Lin Shui by the collar and stared straight into her eyes. Lin Shui's face drained of color. Fragments of memories from her previous life lingered in her mind. In those memories, she was the one who tricked Li Bing into opening the door, leading to him being beaten to death. She was the root of everything. Impossible. Does that mean you're also a reborn soul? Lin Shui paled with fright, finally piecing together the full truth. So you knew from the very beginning that I was reborn. This whole thing was a trap you set, wasn't it? Li Bing, how ruthless, how malicious you are. I never imagined you could be such a person. Lin Shui stared at him resentfully. She bit her lower lip hard enough to break the skin, blood trickling down her chin. She resembled a wounded beast hunted down, helpless and alone. That's right. You pushed me to this. In my past life, you were the one who got me killed. In this life, I came back to seek revenge. What of it? Li Bing smiled, pulled a cigarette from his pocket, and lit it. He took a deep drag, feeling a heavy weight lift from his shoulders. My original plan would have taken far longer. Unfortunately, you two pushed me too hard today. Chance handed me this opening. You only have your own foolishness to blame. Li Bing crouched down, his face only a fist's distance from Lin Shui's. He looked straight at her and spoke each word slowly. I can only say I was blind to see you for who you are. This is my karma. Those words ignited Li Bing's anger. He raised his right hand and slapped Lin Shui hard across the face before she could react. Shut up, you hypocrite. Even now, you pretend to be pure. When have you ever truly looked at me? Lin Shui crumpled to the floor, 5 clear red handprints blooming on her cheek. She looked utterly miserable. Do you know how much money I spent on you over the years? At least 5 or 600,000, likely close to 7 or 800,000. That's just what I spent on you alone. And what did I get in return? You never spared me a glance. I handled all your tedious schoolwork for you, prepared your documents, rented your apartment, covered all your meals. Yet you showed me no gratitude, ordering me around as if I were your servant. I admit I once cared for you, but you treated me this way. Lin Shui knew she had no grounds to argue and turned her head away, unable to meet Li Bing's gaze. Anger surging, Li Bing gripped her jaw, forcing her to look directly at him. What hurt me most was what happened in the apocalypse in my past life. You, the ungrateful woman. I trusted you enough to open the door and share supplies with you, only to bring wolves into my home and meet my end. Stop pretending to be innocent, or I will not hold back. Li Bing's accusations were well-founded, leaving Lin Shui with nothing to say. The only sounds filling the basement were their heavy breathing. Heh, am I not allowed to fight to survive? Lin Shui retorted. After speaking, much of Li Bing's rage faded. He stood and walked over to the soft sofa to sit down. He tidied his hair, feeling lighter. You are right. You have the right to survive. But you should never have crossed me, never have harmed me. This is the price you pay for what you did. As he spoke, Li Bing stretched out a hand and summoned a can of cola from his spatial ability with his mind. He popped the tab and took a large gulp. The crisp, fizzy sensation made him feel utterly relaxed. Want a drink? Lin Shui stared blankly. The sight of her spatial power now in Li Bing's hands brought a pain sharper than losing her first love. Fresh tears rolled silently down her cheeks. She regretted her own stupidity, regretted failing to see through Li Bing's scheme sooner. But it was all too late. No one could have guessed Li Bing had hidden his true strength as an ordinary man, capable of seizing another's awakened ability. The realization filled her with terror of him. If you can stand on your feet, get out of my sight. Li Bing shot Lin Shui another disgusted glance. He paid her no more attention and headed toward his 3-story villa. Before walking out the door, he glanced back at Lin Shui. Oh, I almost forgot to tell you. This villa was purchased under your ID. It wasn't fully paid for either. There's an outstanding loan, all registered under your name. Remember to make the monthly payment on the 3rd of every month. The bus stop is to your left when you step outside. Try not to dirty my floors. Bang. The door slammed shut. Li Bing, I will kill you. A shrill, despairing scream echoed out of the basement. Lin Shui's final cry before she blacked out once more. Li Bing wandered the upper floors for a while, then drove back to his residential apartment. The villa was still incomplete. He planned to move in once construction finished. Besides, his current residence sat close to the city center, making supply runs convenient. For now, he would stay where he was. Back home, Li Bing ran more tests by retrieving and storing various items with his mind. He confirmed that all non-living objects could be stored inside. He had yet to figure out the maximum size limit for items. But what he had was already more than sufficient. His first batch of supplies rested safely inside his 1,000,000 square meter space. Li Bing felt immense joy at the sight of them. Once he grew fully accustomed to using the spatial ability, he laid out his next plan. purchasing a second batch of supplies. And then, I need to seize the abilities of other awakened humans. The power granted by these awakened abilities was incredible, captivating him deeply. That night, Li Bing enjoyed a peaceful, uninterrupted sleep. He woke up fully refreshed the next morning. The countdown hanging before his eyes read 26 days remaining. A sense of urgency washed over him. Time flies. I need to hurry and stock up the second batch of supplies. He checked his bank balance. Roughly 7.1 million remained. Li Bing sighed. Money slipped away far too quickly. He had only just begun his preparations, yet he had already spent nearly a third of his funds. The thought gave him a headache. His plan required stockpiling dozens of batches of goods to sustain him through decades of apocalypse. Every detail demanded his careful effort. For the second supply run, Li Bing headed straight for the farmer's market. The market was bustling with all kinds of vendors calling out to sell fresh goods. Fresh vegetables today, 20% off, come take a look. Fresh-caught crayfish, abalone, and seafood. Come browse. Sweet Turpan watermelons, 1 yuan per kilogram. Don't miss out. Li Bing stepped into the market amid the noisy calls of vendors. He grew up in the countryside and knew hardship well, so he felt a natural fondness for rural life. Instead of finding the racket overwhelming, he felt welcomed by the lively atmosphere. He wove between stalls, ready to purchase his second large batch of supplies. Hey sir, fresh watermelons. 1 yuan a jean, picked straight from the fields today. A middle-aged man with stubble and yellowed teeth wore a straw hat, his arms darkened by the sun. He leaned forward eagerly, pitching his produce to Li Bing. Hey young man, care for some watermelons? Take a look. Our melons are big and sweet. The burly vendor held out half a freshly cut watermelon. He scooped out a small chunk with his knife and eagerly offered it to Li Bing, who declined to take it. Li Bing glanced at the fruit and was about to speak when the man forced the slice into his hand. Have a taste, boss. Guaranteed sweet. The watermelon vendor gave an honest grin. Juice dripped down onto Li Bing's palm. He took a bite. The flesh was crisp, sweet, and full of juice. This watermelon is really good. How much are you selling them for? The man patted a large melon. These are genuine sandy flesh watermelons. If you're interested, I'll give you a price of 0.8 yuan per jean. What's your name? Li Bing chewed the watermelon, satisfied with the quality, and planned to negotiate the price. Boss, my name is Hua Chong. I grew all these melons myself. Sales have been terrible this year, so I'm selling them cheap. Li Bing nearly spat out his mouthful of watermelon. The name sounded far too familiar. Still, the vendor seemed like an honest fellow, not the infamous Hua Chong he had in mind. He said awkwardly, All right, boss. I'll buy your entire truckload of watermelons. What? The burly man Hua Chong gasped sharply, his eyes widening. The half watermelon in his hand slipped to the ground as he froze in place. Boss, say that again. How many do you want? Hua Chong's hands shook violently, and his voice trembled. Quit beating around the bush. Are you selling or not? I'll take every watermelon on this truck. Give me an estimate of the total weight in tons. Li Bing remained expressionless, nodding toward the truck piled high with melons. Sold. Absolutely sold. Hua Chong's eyes instantly reddened with excitement, a broad smile spreading across his face. He never imagined meeting such a big buyer who would clear out his entire stock in one go. Overjoyed, Hua Chong quickly spoke up. Boss, I won't weigh each melon one by one. There are more than 500 melons here, roughly over 2 tons. All homegrown. Altogether, it'll be about 100,000 yuan. I won't haggle, you won't lose out. Does that work for you? Hua Chong looked at him expectantly, waiting for Li Bing's reply. Li Bing thought it over. The asking price was reasonable, even slightly lower than market rates. He had plenty of money now, yet countless expenses awaited him. Every bit saved counted. Very well. Deliver this truck of watermelons to my place. I'll give you the address. Make sure they arrive before tonight. Will do, no problem. Hua Chong was overflowing with excitement, repeatedly bowing and thanking Li Bing. Li Bing waved him off and prepared to continue shopping. Just then, an over 50-year-old woman limped forward. Li Bing noticed her right leg troubled by a long-term ailment that hampered her movement. She leaned on a cane, yet carried herself with quiet resilience. Beside her sat her 8-year-old granddaughter. Though their clothes were plain, they appeared harmless. She had watched Hua Chong sell his whole truckload and grew envious. She hobbled over to Li Bing. Sir, would you like to try our cantaloupes? They're delicious. Have a sample if you'd like. Leaning on her cane, she shakily held out half a cantaloupe toward him. Uncle, please have a taste. Our cantaloupes are really sweet. The little girl in red with twin buns timidly said to Li Bing. Sir, this is Aunt Lu. It's just her and her granddaughter at home now. The girl's parents, Aunt Lu's son and daughter-in-law, passed away in a traffic accident. Only the two of them are left to rely on each other. They've had a hard time. I try to support their business whenever I can. Hua Chong scratched his head sheepishly and told Li Bing their story. Li Bing nodded, stirred by compassion. He had a kind heart, and seeing their difficult situation tugged at his sympathies. Moreover, supplies like these would be vital once the apocalypse arrived. After the end of the world, no new fruits or vegetables would grow. This was the perfect chance to stock up. Seeing the elderly woman's hardship, he was glad to lend a hand. Surviving the apocalypse would be hard enough for everyone. Your cantaloupes look good. I'll buy your entire load as well. Aunt Lu's gloomy face instantly lit up. With this money, she and her granddaughter would not have to worry about daily necessities for a long while. Thank you so much, sir. Good people are blessed. May you live a long life. Aunt Lu tried to bow to Li Bing with her cane, but he stopped her. Truth be told, he could only offer so much help. Besides, these supplies were something he needed regardless. The young girl in red grinned sweetly at him. Thank you, big brother. You're the nicest person in the world. Tuanchuan likes you. Li Bing knelt down and stroked the little girl's head. Sadness flickered across his eyes. He knew the apocalypse would arrive in 25 days. Most people would not survive the first week. Only the wealthy and powerful stood a chance of enduring what was coming. Ordinary folks like these would be forgotten. But he could not warn them of what lay ahead. Li Bing softened his tone. Tuanchuan, you're still young. There's so much joy in life waiting for you. Buy whatever food you've been wanting to try. Tuanchuan wants fried chicken and hamburgers. I've heard fried chicken, hamburgers, and cola taste amazing. I want to try them. I also want pretty new clothes. I wish Mom and Dad could see me in them. I can start first grade this coming September. As she spoke, Tuanchuan's eyes shone with longing, a genuine happy smile blooming on her rosy cheeks. Li Bing fell silent. A heavy weight settled in his chest, bitter and stifling. He could find no words. Some truths were too heavy to speak aloud. Tuanchuan, you're such a good girl. If you want hamburgers, I'll take you to eat them. How about that? Really? Thank you so much, big brother. Bright hope filled Tuanchuan's innocent face. Though she remained shy, hiding half behind her grandmother, torn between longing and nervousness. Come on, I'll take you for hamburgers and cola. Li Bing lifted Tuanchuan into his arms. He was about to set off when another elderly man suddenly cut in, shouldering past Aunt Lu to block his path. Sir, take a look at my cantaloupes. Mine are sweeter than hers. I'll even sell them 1 yuan cheaper. She charges 2 yuan, I'll charge 1. Every single one is top quality, I promise. Li Bing felt annoyed at this unexpected interruption. He shot Old Hu a sharp glance, but said nothing. What's your problem, Old Hu? Aunt Lu's expression darkened as she glared at the man. No problem at all. The gentleman can buy from whoever he likes. Isn't that right, sir? Old Hu smiled ingratiatingly at Li Bing, his wrinkled face crumpling. At the sight of Old Hu, Tuanchuan burst into tears and buried herself against Li Bing. It took Li Bing quite a while to calm her down. Anger simmered inside him. You're trying to sell your own cantaloupes? Li Bing stared coldly at Old Hu, who ignored his icy gaze and kept promoting his fruit. Li Bing glanced at the cantaloupe in the old man's hands. Compared with Aunt Lu's melons, it was half the size, packed with seeds. Worse still, patches of its rind had turned yellow and dark, clear signs it was beginning to rot. These are your cantaloupes? If all of them look like this, take them away. I have no interest. Li Bing rejected him flatly, his tone frosty. What's this supposed to mean, sir? All these cantaloupes come from the same place. Are you refusing to buy mine just because you're buying hers? Do you look down on me, Old Hu? Are you attempting to force me into buying your goods? Li Bing let out a cold laugh. That's not what I'm saying, sir. I figured since you're buying cantaloupes here at the market, you might as well buy mine too. It works out well for both of us. Though stooped with age, Old Hu was full of energy, stubbornly pestering Li Bing. Old Hu, don't push your luck. The gentleman can choose whoever he wants to buy from. It's none of your business. Aunt Lu shook her cane angrily at him. Humph, Sister Lu, have you paid your stall rent this month? You're in no position to talk back. One more word, and I'll double your rent. Old Hu straightened his back, speaking arrogantly. Aunt Lu's face paled, and she fell quiet. Tuanchuan pointed at Old Hu and said, This grandpa is bad. He bullies us all the time. Old Hu, I've said I'm not buying. Go back to your stall and sell your melons. They'll rot within a couple of days otherwise. Your cantaloupes aren't sweet or tasty. Who would buy your rotten fruit? What gives you the nerve to sell substandard produce in this market? Li Bing spoke bluntly, showing the old man no mercy. That's right. Everyone knows Old Hu bought a batch of poor quality melons to trick wealthy customers, shouted a middle-aged woman running a pork stall opposite. Tell me about it. I bought fruit from him once and suffered stomach trouble for 3 days. Even my dog got sick after eating it. He only dares act so boldly because his son holds an official position at the Municipal Administration for Market Regulation. Another voice chimed in from the crowd. You're all lying. Old Hu flushed red, hopping mad and shouting accusations at everyone. Hua Chong quietly stepped over and tugged Li Bing's sleeve. Confused, Li Bing followed him to a quieter spot beside his truck. What is it? Li Bing asked. Sir, do you know Old Hu's son is the director of the Municipal Administration for Market Regulation? If you anger him today, us small vendors will all suffer later. I suggest you let this matter rest. He could send inspectors over any time, claim our goods fail quality checks. We'd have to smile and endure unfair treatment, offering gifts to smooth things over. All that money ends up in Old Hu or his son's pockets. There's nowhere we can appeal. Hua Chong wore a bitter look, voicing the hardships of ordinary street vendors. Besides, Aunt Lu rents her stall from Old Hu. I helped cover her rent last month. If you cross him, Aunt Lu and little Tuanshuan will be the ones to suffer. Hua Chong sighed and laid out the whole truth. Li Bing now understood. Everyone feared Old Hu thanks to his powerful son. No wonder he acted so domineering around the market. Boy, you will buy my melons today. You've ruined my reputation and hurt my sales. You owe me compensation for the losses. Old Hu snarled, trying to strong-arm Li Bing into a purchase. And what will you do if I refuse? Are you planning to eat me? Li Bing sneered. He knew exactly how to handle someone like the old man. Don't get cocky. Believe me, I'll call my son and have you locked up. Old Hu shouted angrily. Oh, your son wields quite a lot of power then. A market regulation official claiming authority to arrest people, overstepping police jurisdiction. Do you want me to make an official report? Your son could lose his post. Don't think you can bully people just because of your son's position. I have connections high up within the Supervision Bureau. Li Bing pulled out his phone and pretended to dial. Hello, Supervision Bureau. He held the phone to his ear, watching Old Hu coldly. Sweat broke out across Old Hu's forehead. He realized Li Bing's threat was credible. He dared not risk ruining his son's career over his own reckless behavior. Wait, let's talk calmly. I was wrong. I apologize. Old Hu bowed repeatedly, nearly dropping to his knees. His face crumpled as if he might cry, terrified of bringing disaster down on his son. Actually, I'm reporting poor sanitation at Donghua Market. I hope you'll send staff to thoroughly clean the premises soon, Li Bing said casually. Noted, sir. We will arrange inspections promptly. Thank you for your feedback regarding Donghua Market. The line went dead. Li Bing fixed Old Hu with a cold stare. Well, Old Hu, anything else you'd like to say? A mocking smile tugged at his lips. Truth be told, Li Bing had only pretended to make the call to scare him. He had no connections with senior officials, but he was certain Old Hu lacked the wits to verify his bluff. Threats were the only way to subdue bullies like him. No, nothing. I lost my temper earlier. Old Hu waved his hands frantically, wiping sweat from his brow, eager to slip away. Yet he dared not move without Li Bing's permission, rooted to the spot. Curious onlookers had surrounded them, watching Old Hu with disapproving eyes. Would you look at that? Who'd have thought Old Hu would finally get what's coming to him? Justice at last, a fishmonger's wife jeered. Ha ha. Old Hu took 5 gene of pork from me for free once. I've been waiting for this moment to see him humbled. Another vendor laughed loudly. Exactly. He's harassed the pastry vendor, Sister Lu, more than once. An elderly man behaving so rudely toward a woman decades younger than him. Shameful. A short woman carrying a basin spoke up from the back of the crowd. If he weren't so old, I'd give him a piece of my mind. He's never done an honest thing in his life, someone else growled. Voices rose one after another, recounting Old Hu's misdeeds. The crowd pressed closer, anger burning in their eyes, ready to attack him. Li Bing noticed a homeless man standing among the onlookers, soaked in cold sweat, helpless and anxious as he stared at the scene. Sir, it's all misunderstandings. Don't listen to them. They're falsely accusing me. Old Hu scrambled to defend himself. From all the complaints, Li Bing learned the full story. Old Hu was petty and malicious, leveraging his son's influence to harass every small stall owner around him. Everyone had endured unfair treatment at his hands. Now they seized the chance to vent their resentment. Li Bing knew violence would lead to trouble. If anyone struck the elderly man, serious consequences would follow. At his advanced age, even light blows could prove fatal, and the attackers would face criminal charges. He raised his voice loudly to calm the crowd. Everyone, I know you've endured Old Hu's bullying for far too long. I'll help you get justice, but no one is to lay a hand on him. If he's seriously injured, you'll all face prison time. Then what can we do? We can't let him get away scot-free, someone protested. Right? Old Hu had my stall fined 2,000 yuan with his son's help. He owes us compensation. Another woman shouted angrily. Quiet, everyone. Listen to me. Li Bing's booming voice cut through the commotion. Old who has committed many wrongs. He will write down every unfair act he's perpetrated. If he refuses, I will contact the regulatory authorities immediately. Once the list is complete, he must compensate every victim in full. If he fails to pay, you can all file formal complaints. I will share the official contact information with you. Li Bing calmed the crowd and continued. He must also visit each of you to apologize in person. You understand what will happen if you refuse, old who. Li Bing grinned and turned toward the old man. Sir, I can't write. I never learned to read or write. Old who pleaded, trapped with no way out. I can write for him. Everyone, come forward and tell me what happened. I'll record every incident. A young man with the look of a college student summoned his courage and called out from the crowd. Well said, son. I'm proud of you. A stout middle-aged man laughed, cheering his boy on. A young man with a flat haircut and glasses stepped forward holding a notebook, his face still youthful. Everyone, I'm Sanhai's eldest son. Tell me every unfair thing old who has done to you, and I'll write it all down. Who wants to start? Me first. The fishmonger's wife stepped forward. Old who pressured his son into fining me 800 yuan. He also took 3 black fish from my stall without paying. Write that down. She spat angrily toward Old who before stepping back into the crowd. Old who stood frozen, too terrified to utter a sound. I'm next. Old who showed up at my home late one night, frightening me badly, and stole my personal belongings. He's utterly shameless, said Sister Lu. The pastry vendor. Though nearly 40, traces of youthful beauty remained on her face, worn down by years of endless toil. Nonsense. I never stole your belongings. Don't make false accusations. Old who flushed with rage, nearly jumping up in protest. The shameless old man. I'll teach him a lesson. A heavy-set man in a singlet moved forward, only to be held back by several other vendors. Li Bing stared on, speechless. He never expected to uncover such a long list of misconduct. Old who was truly shameless.